Hi.
There we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And oh boy.
Peter, I think is gonna lose his shit tonight. I'm just giving everybody a warning. I think that there's gonna be rage. I feel rage, but I have a feeling that it's mostly gonna be you tonight.
Well, we're definitely going to have a lot of different topics to talk about. As you guys know, we all know what the primary topic is going to be. Our wonderful friend Zaina Day from Status Quo News is going to join us around 7:45 to talk about exactly what happened last night. And while we are not advocates for violence, keep in mind that what happened last night is something that should be taken with a huge grain of salt. Why? Because it is being used as a political football for all it's worth by the Zionists, who are going to try to exploit this as a means to continuing what they're doing. But we will get to that. There are a lot of topics to talk about tonight. And one thing I do want to get out of the way at the top, because like I said, I'm in a mood right now. That's the nicest way of putting it.
I've gathered. Yeah, I have a few things to say about the couple that got shot. And and as a precursor, if you're new here, welcome, because we've gotten a lot of new people. We appreciate you being here. We don't advocate violence. However, I am a very, very firm believer in natural and logical consequences of people's actions. Right. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's just basic. And so it's really one of those things where while I don't condone it, I expect it because that's just where we are. And I think to not acknowledge that doesn't make any sense. That being said, again, I am unarmed. I don't have weapons. And I am not a violent person as of right now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the way things are going.
Jesus is God. You're entitled to your opinion. We appreciate you being here. Here's what I will tell you. We are not pro-Hamas. However, Jen has been saying this since just after October 7th. For one person, there is a terrorist, and for another person, it is a freedom fighter.
Every man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
So don't think for a second that Hamas is just some random terrorist group that propped up out of nowhere. No.
Right.
More often than not, these circumstances arise as a result of exploitation.
I don't have a problem with Hamas for a myriad of reasons. One, that's not my problem to have or not have. It's irrelevant what I think of that. That's not my governance.
If the Palestinian people were not being exploited and massacred the way that they are and the way that they have been for such a very long time, Hamas wouldn't exist.
And let's be clear, who's been doing the murdering of the Palestinians? Not Hamas. Hamas, and I guess it's, as I get more and more revolutionary, I will say, the oppressor doesn't get to decide how the oppressed rise up. The oppressor doesn't get to decide what the oppressed do to get the boot off their neck. You don't get to judge what people do that are born in captivity. Because again, like I've said a million times, if I were born in Gaza, there is no way that I wouldn't be wanting to be burning shit down and hurting people. Because you know what? Human beings, I know this is going to sound crazy to some people, like the Zio Israelis at my Pilates studio when I said this to them. Some people might not like being born in captivity. Just for thoughts. Just putting that out there.
Now, as you guys know, We are only a few minutes in. We're already over 100 live viewers. Now, we do need to have a mod. We do. I know
Rachel, I think Rachel can do it. We were just discussing it right now. And I know that Brett had volunteered.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to say. Well, if Rachel is here and she's interested, Colin will show us. Apparently, there's a way where you can just click on the person's name and make them make them a mod. So yeah.
Okay, so Rachel, just get yourself in the chat at some point, and I'll point it out. And we can have more than one. So if somebody's here one time and someone's not here another time, because as awesome as we are, I know people have other things to do sometimes.
I mean, we are pretty decent, but remember, guys, there's 110 of you watching right now, and only 50 of you have hit the like button. So make sure that you smash that like button.
And we know you're not bots.
Yes, we know you're not bots. There's one thing we know about this channel, and if there is one thing that we have learned since we basically have usually on a channel, if it's got like a 10-to-1 like to view ratio, that's generally sort of the average, maybe a little bit lower than that. When we are observing the numbers, because we were on a heater and we've been on a heater recently, and a number of our clips.
Is that a sports term? Is that a sports reference? Is that a sporty game thing?
It can be, but it's also a reference to
gambling
just,
thing.
It's just a reference to, the numbers are strong right now. Jack Huffman, we're very happy to have you here. And if you choose to subscribe, we will like you even more. So
it's free.
It is. Don't cost you much. Doesn't even cost you to hit the
helps promote educating people, and you can choose to watch or not, but see what you 100%. Think.
So I do want to lead off with something before we get into our first fun topic of the night, because I don't want it to all be doom and gloom while you guys are here. We have not done a segment with Jon Stewart in a while, and we both really like Jon, despite his tendencies to try to placate to the establishment in a what I would not call a selling out kind of way, but just try to do a balancing act kind of way. And a lot of guys tend to do that. We get that. But Jon's not a bad guy. That I would never call into question. But what I do want to say, and this is very important, I want everyone to listen. And I'm saying this to every Zionist who I know is in the audience right now and is eventually going to see this clip. I am only going to say this one time, and only once. If you ever physically threaten Jen Perelman, and I mean ever, if you dox her like one of them did earlier today by posting her address, let me assure you that if I ever find out who you are, I will find you and I will deal with you. That is a promise. I am not afraid of anybody. I am not afraid to die. Let me assure you, if you're going to come after Jen, you're going to come after me. And for the most part, all of you Zionist cocksuckers are a bunch of fucking pussies who like to go after women, who like to abuse women. You don't talk shit like that to somebody like me, because I'll defend myself and I will stand up to everybody.
Excuse you me. I assure you I would defend myself also. Majority of people that we're talking about are cowards anyway. So
not only that, I want to
know what they said. I like to know.
Well, here's the other thing you have to remember about these guys. They don't show their faces. I think you guys have known for a while that I have it, for like a few people that are out there in particular. I have always mentioned Io Jacobi as one of the worst, because this guy's like 25 years old. He's a Nepo baby whose father is an Israeli professor at Rutgers. I always want to point this out because damn my alma mater for employing a piece of shit like that. But this kid grew up in Princeton in $1 million home, went to UPenn, and now is in grad school, I think at like Harvard or something like that. And this guy, as far as I can tell, clearly works for the Mossad. He is putting out talking points for the last 24 hours, basically saying that Free Palestine is the greatest threat to national security in the United States. And so what I said on our behalf in response is, no, Zionism is the greatest threat to national security. And then you had a handful of these fuckers come on board and start coming after. And I don't really care what you say, but when you start physically threatening people.
What did they say? Because no, people can get in trouble for that shit.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I reported the person because they doxed you.
What does that mean?
It means that they tried to put up your address. They tried to show your physical address.
And here's the thing with that. While that is obnoxious and mean, it's public information.
So
if somebody wanted to, find my address, they could. I'm just saying it's not like, you know.
The type of people that do things like
What
that.
were they suggesting happens here? Are they bringing me a party?
Well, no, they want to bring you harm.
Okay.
That's
Well,
what they want to do.
except none of them actually have the balls to do it.
Well, no, they do, but that would involve them not actually having to get their hands dirty. You see, they're okay with everybody else dropping bombs, but if they actually have to do it, again, I always reference Heinrich Himmler, who I always believed was the worst Nazi. Here's a guy who authored the final solution, and when he had the opportunity to assassinate a Russian POW, which he did, he then proceeded to puke his guts out because he couldn't deal with having to get his hands dirty. That's how it is for a lot of these guys. They all talk a big game, but when push comes to shove, no, they won't do that. And to that fuckhead in South Florida, and you know who you are, I have been seeing the stuff that you've been posting online. You walking around with your fucking dog tag on, acting like your life is all perfect and nothing wrong is going on.
Do you think that like he hates?
I don't think that's him. But I'm just using him as a reference because this motherfucker is going out there and doing the exact same thing. He is posting everything about how Free Palestine is a terror organization. He actually, he said that the Dream Defenders are a terrorist organization.
But what did he say about me?
Oh,
what were they saying about me? That's what I don't understand. They were just saying
they want you to come to Washington, D.C. and that they're going to deal with you.
Oh, they want to deal with me?
Yeah, they want to deal with you.
Well, are they going to pay my expenses to go?
I doubt that.
Okay. Because if they want to pay my expenses and put me up somewhere really nice, I'll come be dealt with. I'll deal with them. And just to be very clear, I am not scared. I'm not scared. He knows I'm not. I am not scared.
I want to bring us one step closer to actually breaking the Zionist stranglehold that is on this country. Keep doing what you're doing. And when Zaina comes on, we're going to talk about it. The way that they have reacted over the last 24 hours. And let me tell you, the worst thing that could happen to the Zionist movement right now is that we are heading into one of the primary holiday weekends of the year where no one wants to talk about politics. No one gives a shit. It's Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July weekend, and Labor Day weekend. And then you could throw in Thanksgiving and Christmas for good measure. No one cares. No one wants to hear about it. So they're going to get their mileage out of what happened last night for the next 24 hours, and that's going to be the end of it. But
can I suggest that I also think that this screams a false flag?
Like I said,
okay.
let's not jump the gun just yet. But like I said, just for those of you that are out there, and you want to throw threats at a woman because that's what you fucking Zio-Nazis tend to do, just like the ones in Brooklyn that decided to gang up on a woman. All of you guys who wouldn't stand 5 seconds in an actual fist fight with a real man, you decide to go after women. Come after me.
But I think when you say that, it's so like I don't even know somebody tell me the word patriarchal. Like it's annoying. Like I don't need you to defend me. And honestly, I am completely okay with somebody wanting to come at me. You know what I mean? It's like, the only reason I don't know is because I don't do social media. I don't need that negative shit in my head.
Hey, motherfucker, whoever the hell you are, let me assure you, I am not afraid of you or any of your fucking ilk. None of you. Okay. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm capable of. All I could tell you is I am a very gentlemanly, friendly person. But if you fuck with my friends and family, you'll find out just what I'm capable of. So you want to talk shit on my channel? You are more than welcome to. If you say one fucking word to Jen, that's going to be the end of it. Okay? I put up with a lot of shit from you Zio-Nazis. We don't kick you out of the chat. We allow you to spew your bullshit. But let me tell you, if you are even challenging me, try it. Let's get on.
It's sort of like it's I think that his level of rage is definitely potent. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing. Like, the rage is very palpable for me.
They're all very big until they're not. The people that have to exploit the weak are the weakest of them all. When they are challenged by their own in terms of stature, capability, and so on, there's a limit to how far people like that will go. It's easy to act a fool when you're on social media. It's another thing entirely when it gets real. And that's what's going to happen. There is only so much that people are going to tolerate. This is beyond the scope at this point. They have gotten away with too much for too long. And as I said, and as I'm sure Jen agrees, what happened last night, whether it was a false flag or not, is going to be exploited for all it's worth. All of it. And they're all the same. Follow the talking points. You can see it. And I hope you guys are taking notes on these accounts that are making these statements. Because as far as I can tell, it's all coordinated. All of it. Remember that bill, H.R. 867, anti-boycott Israel bill? You can bet your ass that's going to make it to the floor again real soon. That's coming back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have all sorts of nice fascist nonsense in store for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we try to explain to people, and let me just say this, and this is a really good, what I would call transition into the topic of Jake Tapper.
Fake
that big, beautiful bill is going to pass. Let me explain something to all of you guys that are all concerned, shitting bricks, about the fact that Trump's bill is going to cut Medicaid and lower taxes on the super rich. The Democratic Party has no leg to stand on. Zero. They are going to campaign on this for the next year plus about how the Republicans cut Medicaid. The Democrats do not support the policy that would prevent this from ever happening again. Single-payer health care would end this shit tomorrow. But they don't support the policy that would prevent this austerity politics from continuing. The goal is to keep you a slave, to keep you scared. If you support the Republicans, you support austerity. If you support the Democrats, you support slavery. So take your pick. How do you want it? Because you're getting fucked either way. Whether you're getting fucked with a sharp object or a rough object, it doesn't matter. It's going to hurt really bad, until you start recognizing the game for what it is. When Jake Tapper writes a book about how, oh, we were going to do this and we were going to do that, and Joe Biden was this and Joe Biden. Jake Tapper relentlessly was telling people that they're crazy for questioning the cognitive capabilities of President Biden. Now he writes a book. Jen?
Well, I'm not surprised because, again, we all knew, they knew the fact that he is just such a tool for the corporate establishment. He's always been a tool for the corporate establishment, or he wouldn't have that job. Let's be real. But, even let's say that he didn't know, even when he says he didn't know, it's all absurd. It's all ridiculous. And I keep going back to the fact that the most culpable person in all of this is still Jill Biden, and Jake Tapper is just an idiot. You want to play him because I am hopeful that so few people buy his stupid book. And that for a while I'm thinking maybe his mom will have to buy a whole bunch of copies or something. She'd be like, "Did you see what my son Jakey did?"
You know what I remember? I remember when Ted Cruz got caught when he wrote his book, and they bought a couple of 100,000 copies of the book to make it look like they were really interested.
Yeah, because how many people do you seriously? How many people are going to, even if it's just neolibs that go out, it's not, how many of them are going to want to go actually get this book?
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, because leave it to Jon Stewart to show you just how desperate they are to gin up interest in this book.
We're back with breaking news in our politics lead and a brand new excerpt from my upcoming book with Axios' Alex Thompson. It's called Original Sin. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's on Biden's decline. It's called Original Sin. I'm sure you've heard on May 20th. That's Tuesday. Original Sin. That's coming out in 3 weeks. On May 20th. That's just 19 days away. In 1 week and 1 day. Coming out in just a few days. Comes out Tuesday. You will not believe what we found out.
that
Neither.
you
You're
are
right.
a
You're right.
corporate whore.
Oh my God.
Heavy
Oh.
corporate whore.
Like, seriously, look, he is so stereotypical. Like, this really could be a movie. It's like if we were the Hunger Games, I mean, he'd probably have different color hair a la Stanley Tucci. But this is absurd. He is absurd. He is a complete tool for capital. He's been a tool for capital forever. He covered this shit up. He knew he was covering it up. And now he's actually trying to profit off of a book saying that he knew.
Mitsanagi's got it right. Used car salesman vibe all the way. That's it. And you will not believe what we discovered about what a jackass I am about trying to peddle my book.
Oh my God.
He's a host on CNN and they let him peddle his book like that in such gratuitous fashion. And that's just a cutaway. You know that he is, I mean, I don't know if any of you in the chat are clearly, I would be shocked if anybody here actually watches CNN, much less Jake Tapper.
I will suggest something. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But what I was going to say is there is no question that he has probably been pumping this book up every single day for the past month. Every day he's pumping it up. And they're letting him use their platform in order to do it. I mean, I would like to hope that some people are getting turned off by this. But let's see what Jon Stewart has to say.
Don't news people have to tell you what they know when they find it out? Isn't that the difference between news and a secret?
I just can't. Well, that's the thing. So actually, Jake Tapper, let me tell you, the hubris on these people is really insane. So he's now trying to profit for a book telling you how he lied to you.
Oh, man.
Up,
Jen,
man.
this one just caught my eye. Day Jones, you look like a new person here. Dude, I can't, or lady, I could be wrong.
You're Peter's spirit friend. You're his spirit friend. He loves you.
If I had to pick, I would say that Packman's worse. Just because
that's like asking somebody's favorite venereal disease.
Yeah, I would just say that Packman's worth simply because he's just he's more of a slime ball. He's more of a slime ball. Like they're kind of on equal footing. They're both Zionists. Let's not forget that about Tapper and Packman. They're both huge Zionists. Not as bad as Dana Bash, but pretty bad. But you know what the beautiful thing is? Jon Stewart is as chewy as it gets. And he's for the liberation of the Palestinian people. So it just goes to show you that there are good people out there. Jon Stewart just happens to be a great entertainer. The fact that he's free Palestine only makes him that much better. Well, let's see what else he has to say.
You won't believe what we found out. No, that's why I'm watching. Breaking news in a week. Now, I don't know how the rest of the country is feeling about this book coming out, but I know New York is hyped. How do you pivot from excitedly promoting your anchor's book to somberly and respectfully promoting your anchor's book?
Biden's health was very much in the news even before the cancer diagnosis was announced on Sunday. That's because of a new book by CNN's Jake Tapper.
This was already going to be a tough week, and this makes it much harder, and that is a reference to the fact that our colleague Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have a book that's set to publish on Tuesday.
This very tough news, this very challenging news, and at the same time, the backdrop of our colleague Jake Tapper's book with Alex Thompson.
Can they add that in anymore? Can they fit that in anymore?
You almost have to admit, I mean,
the QR code to buy it across the screen, for God's sake.
I mean, I've worked in sports media, so I could tell you that there's clearly a producer in the anchor's ears, basically telling them, okay, get plug plug. That's all. That's all. And it's just one word. It's plug, plug, plug.
I do want to say this, though, that I don't know if you got to see any of Megyn Kelly's interview with Jake Tapper.
I haven't, but I heard she destroyed him.
She destroyed him. And I, again, not a fan of Megyn Kelly. I think she looks and is a horrible person. Like, I am not a fan of her. Yeah, but she destroyed him. It was kind
coming out this week.
It's so hard. It's such a difficult time, so unfathomable in terms of the pain this family must be feeling. And yet, if you act now, and you use the code / tap that book, you will obviously this 20% off offer is not you actually frame this difficult news as perhaps even more of a reason to buy this book.
The timing of former President Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis is certainly dramatic, coming on the eve of a blockbuster new book about his health.
I don't understand why they keep putting me on TV.
I knew you were going to go right into Brian's filter mode.
Look at how much they've colored my face. I look like a hot potato just fresh out of the oven. I'm going to call him Brian
So
Taylor.
So can we get that? I mean, I don't know if there's a way for us to easily get the clip of
Colin,
some of the Megyn Kelly thing.
Yeah, if you've got a clip of,
any of
Megyn.
Megyn going after fake snapper.
Yeah, fake snapper. That's a good one. All right, let's finish it up.
His time in the White House.
go on.
I'm sure some observers will say that the reporting in the book is even more important now.
Yet nobody's saying that. No observers will say it's more important now. Some observers might think, do these CNN people work on commission?
Yes.
Why are they hawking this fucking thing? Is this a Girl Scout cookie situation? Whoever sells the most Tapper books gets a Schwinn.
Well, I mean, look, it was definitely put into all their notes to be referencing it every, definitely.
Slipping it in there. Like I said, just getting that word from the producer telling him, now, please, now. That's essentially what's happening. And it also goes to show you at the same time, if you guys have been paying attention, that the opportunism and also the exploitation of Biden is on full display because they're trying to avoid responsibility in any way. And we know how many people are guilty of propping up Biden. We've mentioned Wasserman Schultz. We've mentioned Dr. Jill Biden.
Did Colin, did you add a clip? I heard it. I heard the little ding and
yes. I mean, we might as well finish this wonderful story out.
All right. So is there the Megyn Kelly clip?
Yeah. Listen, whether you like Megyn Kelly or not, she's a pit bull attorney. So when she goes in, she's coming with the goods. And I'm
curious what she had to say about Kristi Noem then, not knowing habeas corpus. We'll get
probably avoided talking about
exactly.
Criticism has been that you're complaining about a cover-up about Joe Biden's mental acuity that failed, that right-wing pundits saw, the right wing in general saw, that independent media saw and reported on, and that was no mystery even to left-wing and so-called mainstream reporters who were not fooled but chose willful blindness instead of honest reporting, and that you were part of it. How do you respond?
It's a tough and fair question. I would say that Alex and I, after Election Day, interviewed more than 200 people, 200 mostly Democratic insiders, and almost all of these interviews were after the election. And they justified to themselves what they had done in terms of misrepresenting how the president was, not just to me and Alex and other reporters, but also just to each other and to the world and to Democrats and to the cabinet, et cetera, by saying that there was this existential threat of Donald Trump and only Joe Biden could beat Donald Trump, and that justified everything in their minds. After that existential threat was over, because the election was over and Donald Trump won, we found, Alex and myself, remarkably willing to talk to us either off the record or on background, or in some cases on the record, about what they saw. One of the things that emerged was that there were two Bidens. One was the fine Biden, serviceable, adequate, and the other one was a non-functioning Biden, and that's the one we saw the night of the debate. And that's the one we saw some clips of here and there that you just showed. And that non-functioning Biden, the one that lost his train of thought in a significant way, not in the way just that every human loses their train of thought, but in a way that shows that he's having trouble articulating his very views. And the one who forgot the name of close aides, who was not able to come up with George Clooney's name, didn't seem to recognize him, all that sort of thing.
He's not answering the question because he can't answer the question without implicating himself, because he's a lying sack of shit. That's why he's not answering the question. But we're learning about the two Bidens. Is one a clone? Is it like the movie Dave?
I was just going to say.
Bring in the second Biden because the first Biden was downstairs held in like the vault with on machines like the movie Dave. I don't know.
That non-functioning Biden was, according to our reporting, showed up as far back as 2015 after the death of Beau, where one top aide said that tragedy, the loss of Beau, was like watching somebody pour water on sand. That was the effect on his psyche. And there were other moments, 2017, 2018, you hear her report, one of the reasons he came to that conclusion was because of the recordings they heard of Joe Biden in 2017 talking to his ghostwriter, in which he was similarly inclined. Obviously in 2019, 2020, there were other moments like that. Most of his campaign staff and others would say, like, he's 78, he's 79, he has senior moments. Tremendously, the next time there was a really horrible family incident, which was when Hunter Biden's.
All right, this
isn't. Yeah, thank you, Colin, for getting it, guys. If you get it,
try it.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I don't know, but there was a portion of that interview where she kept saying, "No, that's not how it went." No, and she kept like stopping him and rebutting what he was saying, and it was really nice to watch. But yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, we don't need to show the entire thing, but that's
I think it's what we've been talking about, which is they are going to try desperately to whitewash this as fast and furiously as they can, to make people forget how systematically corrupt the Democratic Party really is. Because they are. They're a systematically broken, corrupt
ask Joe Biden
political party.
to be transparent about his health records in an interview in 2020. I did ask him about the fact that voters thought that
Here it is.
He was not transparent at all. No.
He promised you that he would be transparent about his health records, and then he wasn't. And when you sat with him again, including 1 month after the Jackie Walorski thing, you didn't ask him about it. You didn't follow up on the fact that he was falling up the stairs, that he was losing his train of thought regularly, that he was slurring, that he was incomprehensible, that he was getting lost on the White House lawn. You sat right across from him and you asked none of that, notwithstanding the fact that he had promised you he would be fully transparent about his health issues. You know as well as I do that there's a way of, you can say, hey, there's this poll on your age, or you could say, you just forgot that Jackie Walorski was dead. You asked where she was moments after watching a videotape tribute to her. You lowered the flags at the White House after she died. This happened 13 days before you sat with him. There is a way of pressing a man like that on the actual infirmities to bring it home to him and to the audience, and you didn't do it. It wasn't just that. I mean, you sat with him a couple of times in the course of his presidency, and these issues were not pressed. Well, there was at least that time, and then there was the time at the beginning. And but separate and apart from that, you covered the Biden's presidency. No. Let me just finish my point. You covered the Biden presidency.
I had one
okay, right. And it was 13 days after the Jackie Walorski thing. But you covered the Biden presidency aggressively throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seemed to be running cover for the president. You didn't seem interested. Do you want to apologize to Lara Trump now?
I've already apologized to her. I called her months ago.
I feel angry because she was right. And not only did you not allow her to make her comments, but you seemed to try to humiliate her. You had a hostility toward the position, but she was totally right. And then you lectured her on how she was in no position to diagnose cognitive decline, which you guys do at length, including on page 4 of your book. You describe at length his cognitive decline, which is all she tried to do with you. But you had such a visceral reaction to her.
Joe Biden has been saying stupid things for decades. Okay,
I get what you're saying, but this minimizes it too, because it was more than saying stupid things. But I'm telling you, like over here in my ecosphere, we were covering all of these. It wasn't just falling down; it was getting lost. It was some of the stuff you report in your book. We knew, and we were reporting on, like the multi-jump cuts in the videos of him, where it was obvious he couldn't get through a 1-minute take, so they had to use those. It was clear to us that he was using teleprompter, and there was some reporting on that at the time, all of which the White House was denying. Now, with the current White House, I have some connections. With the Joe Biden White House, I had none, but you did. You did. And so while you've been in Washington 30 years, Jake, you guys, you and CNN have White House connections, but there was no effort, none to get to the bottom of this. And now for you guys to write this book, like there was a cover up. It's like there was a cover up and there was an attempted cover up. It could only ever work if you allowed it.
It's not an attempted cover up. It was.
Well, no, it failed. It failed.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we know. And the truth is we did know. That's why it's so stupid for him to try to sell a book telling us what we already knew and totally like implicating himself for contributing to the problem. Like, what an idiot. Like, you know, and honestly, someone who could sit there and make me like be cheering for Megyn Kelly, you've got to really wonder. But she was putting him rightfully in his place. And you know what? Serves him right. Because just because he doesn't know how to act like a reporter and a journalist doesn't mean other people don't. So if he doesn't want to have those kinds of questions, then you need to get out of where the big boys play. You need to get out. You need to go stay with the little dogs.
If there's one thing that I think we've learned over the past decade in particular through the whole Bernie Trump phenomenon that we've been living through, and I don't even think Jake Tapper's one of the worst. I think there are tons of people infinitely worse than he is. But you know what you can definitely take away from his 2 interviews? Well, it wasn't an interview. It was Jon Stewart cutting him up and then Megyn Kelly sticking it to him directly. These ultra-liberal, I'm not going to call them journalists because they're not journalists. Like it's so denigrating to real journalism. You know, especially you want to talk about real journalists, those that are actually in the line of fire in Gaza and the West Bank. Those are real journalists, not people that sit in ivory towers along the Beltway or New York City. But Jake Tapper is part of that ultra-liberal elitist class that truly believes that they're more important than they really are. In fact, they're not important at all. They're completely useless. And they come out and he writes a book. And let's take it a step further.
That's what makes him bad, though. That's the part, is that he's now trying to profit on it. So it makes him just that much extra.
Yeah, but who's going to buy the book? The chat is 100% correct. Like, who's going to buy it? Can you think of one person in your life who's like, oh, I'm definitely going to buy Jake Tapper's book? Anybody?
No, I don't know anyone that would do that. I know people that like, if they had like, you know, a few credits on Audible in a few years might, you know, hit click by accident. But no, I don't know anybody that's going to go out of their way to buy his book.
Guys, we have passed 300 live viewers for what I believe is the first time ever on our show. So clearly we're doing
maybe. Right.
So we're doing something right. And we really
so
do
hit
appreciate
the like button. Please give us a like. Please feel free to subscribe. It's free. It's free. You could subscribe. You could check us out a few episodes. Go look at some of our, you know, content that we have. We have almost 5 years of content. And a lot of it is still relevant because not everything is timely. Some of it's just deep and informative and probative.
Oh, I think so. And if you guys like us, you know, we are a decent pair, I think. We are doing a decent job. And for those of you who are here, we would always appreciate if you would go to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We've already run the names, but we've already gotten a couple of super chats, and we really appreciate you guys being here.
Yes, we do.
S. Kolachuk, one of our favorite Canadians. Thank you for the 5 Canadian A. Have you seen the video of Mussolini saying spaghetti?
Now,
no, but I'm sure it's funny.
Is he being literal, or is that some sort of like, is there a meme of it or something? Like, I don't know if that's something that's serious or if it's, I don't know. I'll look.
I'm not sure. Jacob Sanders, Thank you for being here as always. Question for Jen, since she's been to Israel. If you are wealthy in Tel Aviv, how easy is it to be unaware or choose to ignore and disconnect from Gaza?
Completely easy. Like you're a mile away and you're hanging out on the beach and there's children that are just having their limbs blown off and you're just sitting there having a drink. Completely easy. And it's purposeful. And this is something, if you guys, I don't remember how long ago it was. It was a long time ago. It was a couple years ago. We had Miko Peled on the show, and he was born and raised in Jerusalem. And he told us, I mean, we had a discussion about it, like when they grew up in their schools in Israel, when they grew up in, where they were, no, he was in Tel Aviv or Tel Aviv. They were taught that all of the things that we, of course, know now are ruins of Palestinian villages and all of these historical sites and all of these ancient relics. And the kids that were raised there were taught that those are this thing or that thing, but it's Hebrew oriented. They renamed everything. They're taught that something that is somebody's house from 1947 is some ancient Hebrew relic that they're entitled to. So yes, it is completely possible. And the only reason that the amount of Israelis are caring or paying attention about this now is, yes, because of October 7th and the hostages, and also because of the amount of crap they're getting from the world. And they know that the world doesn't like them, and they know that what they're doing is seen as wrong, but they don't care. They don't care.
Glenn Dizer, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here. 155 STW, thank you so much for the $2 super sticker. And if you guys haven't smashed that like button or are not subscribed, make sure that you are, because getting the word out is key. Oh, Jesus is God became a YouTube member.
Oh, hey.
Yes, we had a pretty good effect on you on a first-time arrival. We really appreciate you being here.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. So Feminist News Network says, like when I was young and take trips down south and see old plantations, slave homes, and Dust Bowl. Exactly. When we see our wretched history and it either gets completely whitewashed or repurposed or repackaged or rebranded so that it's not really what it was, or you have people that are having these beautiful plantation weddings on these plantations, like nothing happened. So yeah, it is similar. The only real difference, I would say, what makes it worse in Israel is that there are people still alive right now who actually were victims of the 1948 Nakba that actually do recall their parents, their grandparents, and them being pushed out of their homes. So we're not talking that long ago.
Well, we're definitely moving up in the world a little bit, Donald James. You've been one of the great supporters. We are closing in on 25,000 subscribers, which is great. But of course, the key is the message. And for those of you who are here and have found your way to our channel, and yes, our goal is to, I know we're not transforming politics into service, but we are changing the way people view and observe the political arena. And yes, I would definitely say that the primary driver of this channel is that we have to use our medium to tell the truth and the true story about not just Israel, but about Palestine. And I believe that this, we'll call it a cartoon, but apparently this is a short cartoon movie. This is just a small clip. But I think this will drive home exactly why we have to keep talking about this. Because if there's one thing that Zionism has been pretty effective at doing, is rewriting history and making one believe that all of these things, like, for example, the Zionist message is to convey to everyone who isn't totally familiar with the Israel-Palestine story that everything started on October 7th, 2023. What a lot of people don't know is that 700 Palestinians were murdered by Israel in 2023 before October 7th. See, that doesn't get talked about.
No. Or quite honestly, the amount of people that have been killed in the West Bank in the past 18 months. I want to say it's up near 700. It's like 600 and something people. It's a lot. And that's getting very little coverage. And what's even more demented and sick about it is that it's the military is just giving arms to the settlers to just go and bully and steal people's land, literally. Like, I don't think people understand that this is literally what happens. It's not figurative. Like, literally a group of people go over to someone's house and their farm with weapons, and they're armed. And of course, the Palestinians have no access to firearms. So of course the settlers are armed, and they go over and make them leave their own house at gunpoint. Literally, this happens. I don't know that people realize that when we say they steal their homes, that we mean that in the most literal sense.
Well, before we start the story, let's bring in our good friend. She has been a huge supporter of Jen's since Jen and I were crazy enough to actually attempt running for Congress against the devil herself, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And of course, you need...
Don't summon her. Don't summon her. She hasn't been in the chat tonight. Don't summon the demon.
Oh, the demon's going to show up one way or the other, and so we'll just have to deal with her when she gets here. Either fully exposed or not. But with that said, our good friend Zaina Day from Status Quo, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey, Zay.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
Good to see you on this crazy, crazy, crazy ass week.
Every week it's getting weirder and weirder. Like, I feel like we're falling deeper and deeper into like Armageddon. I mean, I don't... It's just crazy. And as I say, I feel bad for the Onion. They're going to have no purpose of existence.
Oh, my goodness.
You can't make this shit up.
You can't. But
it feels satirical, but it's horrific in reality.
Well, for somebody who is of Iranian heritage and sees exactly what's going on in this world and how the demonization of your background, of so many people's backgrounds, and what Zionism has been attempting to do for 75 years now. How many years is it? What was the holiday, Jen? 1948. So yeah, 77 years that they've been attempting to get away with this. Yeah. It is upon us. Look who showed up we haven't seen in a long time. One of our OGs, JD Party Hat.
JD Party Hat.
Good to see you. We will never forget those that have been with us when we only had 30 people in the live view. So you know, when you grow,
I was one of those.
Yes.
Do not get too big for your britches. So this little clip is going to give you guys, because we're going to cover a lot tonight regarding Israel Palestine, but this will give you a good overview as to the whitewashing of history when it comes to Palestine, not Israel.
Where your family came from. My family came from Ireland.
Yes.
Who's next? Jennifer, great. United Kingdom, fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, who would like to go next? Okay, great. Lily, come on up. Your family's from Germany, great. Thank you. Okay, Samida, your turn.
Palestine?
Huh. There's no Palestine on the map. I'll mark Israel for you.
Baba, where am I from?
بابا تعالي شوي. You're from Palestine. They call Yafa the bride of the sea. It is the golden majestic resource.
Did I send that to you? Or did
You
you
may
just
have.
see it also? Because I remember seeing it and thinking that was so, it's touching, and it makes me really sad because you know my friend here. I'm not mentioning names on my show, Peter. You know who I'm talking about. I have a friend
Yes.
who's Palestinian and grew up down here and in a very Jewish area, and grew up lying, or not lying, but if they'd say, "Where are you from?" she would always say Jordan. You know, like she was scared for people to know she was Palestinian. And ever since I knew that, it's like you picture this little girl that can't even tell people where she's from. And
Well,
that's just heartbreaking to me. So that when I saw that, like, that's what that reminds me of. It's just so
Well, that's
sad.
my friend. That's my real estate friend who's Palestinian and has to lie to people and say she's from Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, and especially down there. And that's as we've talked about, Z, that when Jen decided to run against Debbie the second time, it was almost a conscious decision going in that we're going to lose, but we have to get this message out there. We have to fight in the belly of the beast. It's easy to do it in places where the momentum is strong. You have to go into the heart of it and kill it where it's strongest. And that's what's happened in South Florida. Yeah, the crowd may be small, but even if the Zionist movement isolates itself into corners of the globe, like South Florida, like Brooklyn, like, San Francisco, whatever, we have to unwind their power structure. And the more we show the truth, the more we expose the truth about what this movement has been about, how it's denigrated not just Judaism, but religion as a whole. It's denigrated our nation, and it's made us so much worse than we really. I mean, listen, we're no picnic. We got a lot of problems here in the United States, but so much of what drives the worst of our nation, especially from a foreign policy standpoint, is Israel. And even though Jen believes that Israel and the U.S. are one and the same, there's no question that the Zionist movement has attached financially, economically, politically, has intertwined the United States with Israel. And it's going to destroy us if we don't completely cut ourselves off from it at some point, and at some point soon, as far as I can see.
And it's fueled by other fascistic, ethnocratic movements, like, it's fueled by Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia fuels it because it upholds Islamofascism, right? And then it's also fueled by the Christian nationalist movement, because and you guys may be showing this clip on the show, I don't know, but Chuck Schumer had said yesterday, everyone else has their own country. Why can't Jewish people? And it's like, that's not the point, dude. Everyone else has their own, I think he said, their own country or their own, that's just, they don't. What's he equating that to? Is he saying that in the United States we should be Christo-nationalist? Is he saying that, it's okay that the Iranian government is suppressing women like they are, or that they're suppressing people like they are in Saudi Arabia, and that slavery there is legal? Is he saying all of that is okay? Is he saying these fascist ethno-states are all right? Is he saying apartheid in South Africa was warranted so that, the Boer there could have their own quote unquote country and keep everyone else out? Like, what the hell kind of argument is that? It's such an insane thing for someone pretending to be like any member of our Congress, but especially a Democrat, to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jews have been using that as one of their, not Zios have been using that as one of their talking points forever, is that, well, there's all these other Muslim states. Yeah, because they just happen to be Muslim and that's where they live. It isn't like a whole bunch of Muslim people got together from Europe and moved down to the desert and said, we're going to create a Muslim state. So yes, and also they would compare it to things like, well, the Japanese have their own nation and the French have their own nation. Yeah, because they're from there. That's what they have. They have a language. Here's the thing about Jews. We don't. We don't, because we're not an ethnicity in that way. We're just not. It's a religion. And so you don't get a state. They interpret these Muslim states as being Muslim because like somehow somebody made it that way, as opposed to organically, that's who's there. You know what I'm saying? And those are very different things. Also, a lot of those countries are Arabic, but not necessarily run Muslim. And the ones that we have that are the worst are the ones that are our friends, supposedly.
Yeah. And we also have to remember that in our country, the level of propaganda is so thick that sometimes you forget that so much of the overwhelming majority of the world is behind the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
They are not behind Israel in any way. In fact, they feel the way that we do and the way that we are talking about this, which is we have to make a clean break. This was footage that was captured the other day, and this was a protest for The Hague.
That's amazing how they had so many people in red. I mean, because I was at the one, Zainab, in DC, the first one, like November 4th, that first year, and there was like 400,000 people. But when you're flying overhead, it doesn't look like that. How do you coordinate? Like, that's pretty impressive organization.
That is. A lot of other countries are far better at organizing than we are, for sure.
Yeah.
If Michael Rappaport doesn't like us, I wear that as a badge of honor. I think that that's a great thing.
How do we know? How do we know he doesn't like us?
And maybe he's been talking shit and I just haven't seen it.
About us?
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Look, he is very grade D. I mean, maybe we'd be on his radar, but I wouldn't think nobody, like that. The fact that he'd be talking about us really speaks poorly of him.
Well, he was giving Blakeley a hard time just a few weeks ago.
He was?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but she's got big following. She has a way bigger following than we do.
Well, Blakeley has been.
No, yeah. I'm saying numbers wise, she does. I mean, she's got a huge platform.
Well, we gave Blakeley a nice boost and she gave us a nice boost. One of the biggest clips we've ever had was her coming on, and it's at like 35,000 views now or something. So why not get on the Blakeley train? I was going to play this clip anyway, but it's a perfect transition because everyone talks about Project 2025, but evidently there's a Project Esther is what I think it's called.
It's the same. Okay, it's from the same people. It's the Heritage Foundation. But yes, there's a Project Esther, which is the plan to basically suppress all speech about Palestine on college campuses. Like that was, and I don't know if it was only specifically for campuses, but I do know that the plan was to start with really clamping down in that regard. So but that's what Project Esther is, and it is also compliments of the Heritage Foundation.
Here's what Blakeley had to say on winding Project Esther.
It's time to talk about Project Esther. Let me first preface by saying that this is a story about free speech. So even if you don't care about what's happening in Palestine, which you should, this assault on our First Amendment is so much bigger than just the Pro-Palestine movement. They're just using the Pro-Palestine movement as a convenient vehicle, the same way that they use WMDs as a convenient vehicle. So don't be a mark. This affects you too. The group behind Project Esther is the same group that's behind Project 2025 and other right-wing initiatives, the Heritage Foundation. In this article, they talk about the group that's behind Project Esther and what they are trying to do. This all started, as this byline points out, even before President Trump was elected. The Heritage Foundation, best known for Project 2025, set out to destroy the pro-Palestinian activism in the U.S. Of course they did, because the right wing, as I say often, is actually organized and actually gets shit done. So it's not a surprise to me that the second October 7th happened, they were already creating new fucking initiatives. And by destroy the pro-Palestine movement in the U.S., the way that they're going about this is through a frontal assault on the First Amendment. So buckle up, let's get into it. I'm not going to go through every single line. I'm going to show you guys all the lines that I highlighted that I think are important to talk about. The Heritage contingent was in Israel in part to discuss another contentious policy paper, Project Esther, the foundation's proposal to rapidly dismantle the pro-Palestinian movement in the United States, along with its support at schools and universities, at progressive organizations, and in Congress.
Now, what I want to say, which I think is very important here. Now, if you, Z, Jen, if you've been paying attention over the last 24 hours and the very coordinated Israel lobby messaging that has been going out all over social media, there has been a very consistent message, the most notable, of course, as I like to point out, by Ayel Yacobi, which is Free Palestine is the biggest threat to national security. And that message has been making the rounds consistently by all of the Israel adjacent accounts. Whether they're MAGA or not doesn't matter. It could be from anybody, and it could come from many different angles, but all comes back to the same goal, which is this Project Esther, which is we must crush the Free Palestine movement.
And this is an old project, because if you think about it, during the Syrian massacres and the multitude of massacres in the 1980s, there was a a groundswell against Israel's attack on Palestinians, Jordanians, and Syrians back then. And what ended up happening is the BDS movement sprung up internationally, right? And then what's been happening since the late 80s and early 90s, because it's still continued to garner steam, is direct attacks against the BDS movement to paint BDS as terrorist. So now they're using, it is new in a sense, but the playbook is something that Israel has been doing for decades upon decades, nearly a century now, for 75 years. It's the same playbook that they've been doing, that they've really been able to hone over the last 3 decades, enabled by Congress, by the media, by institutions. What I'm hearing here is the same playbook they used with BDS.
Agreed. All right,
yeah.
We'll continue.
Republican and Democratic administrations alike have long supported and funded the Israeli regime as a crucial ally, and there have been bipartisan efforts to counter criticism of the Israeli regime by labeling a range of speech and organizing in support of Palestinian rights as support for terrorism. That's the whole fucking game. Like, that is the whole plan. That is the whole plan. Take any criticism of this foreign government and label it anti-Semitic and support for terrorism. That way, they not only get to ostracize you from polite society by calling you a racist and an anti-Semite, but they can also deplatform you, defund you, get you kicked out of school, get your funding stripped if you're an organization, an advocacy organization, sue you, get you fired from your job, or if you're not a citizen, deport you. But Project Esther aims to go further, equating actions such as participating in a pro-Palestinian campus protest with providing material support for terrorism. And the media, every step of the way, aids and abets this, and so have the universities. Because this is reminding me of when Tim Dillon, the comedian, was being interviewed by Piers But Do You Condemn Hamas Morgan? And how Piers Morgan, who is allegedly a journalist, allegedly like a news person who should understand this kind of context, had to have this explained to him by Tim Dillon. Again, who's a fucking YouTuber, who's a comedian. Also,
you never been?
But you
never been? I mean, that's the whole thing about Douglas Murray and Dave Smith, is this idea of, excuse me, you're just a comedian. I'm an intellectual, and you have to take me at my word. And no.
Have you ever been to Gaza? Have you ever been to the West Bank? You don't have a right to speak on it unless you've been there than 5 years earlier. I can speak on it even if I'm not there, because it's a national crisis. It's an international crisis. And then the dude goes, and after he goes, he's like, have you ever been there? That's Douglas Murray.
Yeah, the death of the ultra-liberal class is upon us, and I could not be happier. If Tim Dillon is running circles around you, And Tim Dillon's a sharp guy, and he's funny as hell. So I welcome this, but it's also a reflection of how did Trump become president of the United States? It's because as much as people hate Trump, they hate the system that much more. They're still forgetting that that's how we got here. That is not a big secret. And on top of everything else, I call it a form of stolen valor. Jen, I pointed out to you that her name is slipping me, Z, but the lady who's the president of Columbia University, she went out to make the speech.
Got booed. Yeah, got booed.
And got booed like crazy. But not only that, but she walks out in a doctorate outfit and she doesn't have one. Like,
when
you're really...
Yeah, but they wear different kinds of robes and costumes when you're a presenter and a speaker, and they have different things. It's all kind of weird. There it is. Thank you. And while we have people on here, please hit the like button, but also shout out. So if you guys are not following Punch Up Pod, that's Lila Charles Lee right there that is in our chat, and you guys should definitely follow them as well. They do live streams on Wednesday and Sunday. I'm generally in the chat. So yeah, it's a really good group. Like it actually, their chat always kind of feels like you're hanging out in someone's living room with people that you agree with and that don't try to gaslight you. It's pleasant.
Heck, they're getting toasty and smoky and all that.
Yes,
so,
they also, yes, but I mean, I think they know that we do it even when they don't spin the wheel.
Absolutely.
Like I'm still smoking even if they don't spin the wheel. I'm just saying.
Now, Lila and Pat knows. Anytime you're on, they're going to be spinning the wheel extra.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish out our good friend Blakeley's commentary.
So the ADL are a joke. They claim to be a civil rights organization, and yet when Jonathan Greenblatt, who is the head of the ADL, was asked what he was going to do to protect Palestinian protests or speech, this is what he said to Dana Bash just a few weeks ago. Dana Bash, who incidentally is also a Zionist extremist.
And the Trump administration is also arresting international students, revoking some of their visas. You have been really clear that due process is essential. You have said that it's not even remotely clear that this has been the standard. What is the ADL doing to pressure the White House to give students who are being arrested due process?
Well, look, the ADL is our job to protect the Jewish people. We're not sort of public defenders for some of the Hamasniks on these college campuses, and I don't want to be. And I think I really need to say that. You take Mahmoud Khalil.
I've been telling you guys for a while that the ADL is trash, and this is just one more example of that. What a fucking liar Jonathan Greenblatt is. First of all, he's racist, so let's just get that out of the way, okay? He's an anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab racist who goes on to call Mahmoud Khalil very problematic because he participated in the pro-Palestinian protests. And as you heard there, called him a Hamasnik. But he's also a liar because he's like, oh, our job is to only protect the Jewish people, not to protect the Hamasniks. No.
You know what that sounds like to me? I hate to say it, but that's exactly what we dealt with down here, Z, with the teachers union and dealing with this idea of we're here to deal with the teachers. We're not concerned about the students. And then you don't even give a screening to Jen. You protect the incumbent. And that comes with direct communication with Randy Weingarten, who basically told us to kick rocks. So it's the same thing. It's totally exploitative of the system. That's what this is about. They might as well all be nonprofits as far as I'm concerned, because that's how they conduct business. Their business is all about the bottom line for their organization. And just so you guys know, in case you don't, Jonathan Greenblatt on paper makes $800,000 a year in salary.
The reason why Dana Bash thought to ask you that question, which of course she didn't follow up, she didn't push back on any of the fucking bullshit he said, because she's also there to be a Zionist extremist that helps manufacture consent for genocide and manufacture consent for Project Esther. But she asked what they were doing to push back against the White House and try to pressure them when it came to defending civil liberties, because that is in fact actually something they claim to do. In fact, Greenblatt himself loves to brag about how they stood up against the Trump administration's Muslim ban in the first term.
True.
Correct.
Yeah, Greenblatt's disgusting. Make no mistake, the Anti-Defamation League has nothing to do with defamation, and it has nothing to do with protecting Jewish people. They exist to protect the Zionist entity. No, I'm just saying, like, that's what their purpose is. It has nothing to do with Jewish protection.
They'll defend straight up, just on the face, anti-Semitic neo-Nazis. They'll defend people like that, as long as those people are defending Israel. I mean, you've seen them show support for Ben Shapiro or show support, and I will say that there are ways that Ben Shapiro, despite being Jewish, is anti-Semitic, and that's by him constantly equating Judaism to Israel. And he's always out there saying, you know, that person isn't a real Jew because they criticize Israel, which is absolutely insane. And then you have people like Nick Fuentes that, you know, the ADL will skirt around. It's they've done that years ago, which Nick Fuentes is now more critical of Israel, so now he's on their baddie list. But when he was defending Israel, they were skirting around him, skirting around Alex Jones. But they will, a pro-Palestine organization like the Electric and Fatah, they'll paint them like this is the most egregious terrorist organization that's ever existed on the planet Earth, and every one of these individuals should be ostracized and arrested, and it's just such a damn sham.
Yeah. But I mean, the premise is, and people need to really understand this, and I want to say this while there's this many people watching, guys, when you're in other shows or in other live streams and you're in chats and you see people saying things that are anti-Jewish, not anti-Zio, anti-Jewish, you need to correct that. You need to be a voice that distinguishes and explains the nuance to people, because as someone who's Jewish, there is extra hate going around because of the constant conflation between Zionism and Judaism. So I'm asking people, if you participate in other chats and you see anti-Jew stuff, and it's not anti-Semitic, Zionists are inherently anti-Semitic. Zionism is an anti-Semitic thing. That it just is. And what's ironic is none of the people that claim anti-Semitism are even Semites. They're all a bunch of white Ashkenazi people. They are the anti-Semites because they don't like the brown people. And Semites are the Arabic peoples that are indigenous to the Levant. That's the Semites that they don't like. So I just find it funny that white Ashkenazi people are constantly crying about anti-Semitism when they're not even Semites. But Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic. And it's like you're giving out this presumption that the way you're behaving is inherently Jewish. And it's so evil. So what an anti-Semitic thing that is, to start like affiliating my people with your evil shit, your white supremacist shit.
I see something similar, not nearly on the scale it is with Israel, but when I would criticize Iran's regime and the Iranian regime and their attacks on the Kurds and the attacks on the Bullocks and their, antiquated theocratic stances, there would be people that would come into the chat and do one of two things on occasion. One would be to be completely Islamophobic and extraordinarily ignorant. And the other would be to scold me for being Islamophobic and saying that I'm just engaging in, fodder that is, to attack the Islamic people. And it's like, neither one of those are true. I am talking about a fundamentalist state. A fascist regime is what I am talking about. I am not talking about the Islamic religion, which is multifaceted and billions of people follow. There's a those are two extremely distinguished things. If I'm criticizing Christo-nationalism, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm criticizing Christianity as a whole, but we can recognize that Christo-nationalism many people can recognize that Christo-nationalism is a fascist and dangerous movement. Some of those same people struggle to recognize that Zionism is anathema to Christo-nationalism. That's why so many Christo-nationalists are Zionist.
Yeah.
There's a ton of Christo-nationalists that are Zionist.
Which is why people like Netanyahu and all those secular, non-Jewish Ashko Zios, that's why they get along so well with the Christian Zios, because they're all anti-Semites. That's the thing. They all don't like the Jews or are self-loathing in whatever their capacity. That's what they have in common, because all of those Christian Zios, they don't give a shit about Jews. They don't like Jews at all. They want us to all go there so we could die in the rapture.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's being forgotten here is just how much of the effort that is put in by the Zionist movement contributes to the ramping up of anti-Semitism. Some of it sits under the surface. Some of it is never going to go away. A lot of it is based on economics more than anything else. However, this movement, it stirs the pot in such a profound way that you can understand how people find themselves just summarily hating Jews and just saying that they're the problem. And the reason I bring this up is because of what happened last night. Now, we have said time and again that it shouldn't have to come to this. It shouldn't have to come to violence. And one thing we must be very clear on, this is the very early stages. We do not know the details about the person who shot these two Israeli workers at the Capitol Jewish Museum in DC. What we do know is that the Zionists have used this as political cannon fodder for all it's worth, because their message is not resonating the way that it once did. 14,000 that we know of, Palestinian children just starved to death this week, and they want to pretend like it didn't happen. They're going to sweep it under the rug, just like they're going to sweep under, as Jen has said so eloquently, it's 2 million dead Palestinians in the desert by the time this is all said and done. There is no accurate count as to how many are deceased already, how many will die as a result of famine, disease, and the like.
I'm infuriated with the media still using the same numbers that we had from a year ago.
This is pretty good. This is a pretty good Timbuktu, pretty good analogy. Zionism is to Judaism as the Westboro Baptist Church is to Christianity. Yeah, it's a bastardization and using it to do something evil.
But if there is a person more than anybody else, and I could go through a litany of different commentary from the Zionist movement. You all know what these people have to say. You all know that's the same talking point. But if there is a person who stands out above the rest of them, sure enough, the person just has to be in Florida, because of course they do. And that, of course, is Randy Fine.
The matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one.
Yeah, and Congressman, there is a ceasefire deal on the table right now that the White House is hoping both Israel and Hamas will sign on to. Does this shooting change anything when it comes to the course of the war or the negotiations to end?
This is not a war. Stop calling.
First of all, it is on Fox News, just like they also probably call it the Gulf of America. You know what I'm saying? They have their own language. Let's just go.
Keep in mind, I'm in the Florida Panhandle, and I've been seeing guys rocking the Gulf of America shit.
I'm sure you have.
Oh, it definitely worked.
End it.
Well, I think it speaks to the importance of the only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something...
What a fucking ignoramus on history. Like, what a he is such a complete piece of shit. Like, this is why I need a rage-o-meter, because of fucking Randy Fine.
It really makes you wonder why Trump had, you almost have to feel like Trump was told that he had to endorse Randy Fine. Because let me tell you, in several parts of the country, but especially in Florida, Trump's endorsement is a golden ticket. You get his endorsement, you're basically good as gold. You'll get in. And that's what he did with Randy Fine. And they moved heaven and earth. And our friend Josh Wheel, again, he's a good guy. He is. He tried to do what he needed to do. There was an insane amount of money that they threw into this race, which was you might as well have set it on fire. Randy Fine still ended up winning the race by 15 or 16
Are you
points.
talking about AIPAC throwing in a ton of money?
I don't know how much money AIPAC gave to Randy Fine, but I know he's one of their favorites. Like, he will espouse the lowest form of human excrement when it comes to the talking points that is thrown out there on behalf of the Israel lobby. There is no line he will not cross, including let's drop a nuke on Gaza, because that's how we'll solve the problem. This man is calling for in clearest terms possible the genocidal removal of the Palestinian people. Is anyone going to make a stink about this on corporate media? Who's going to talk?
I'm disgusted by this man. Like, he's the kind of guy, like, he's someone I want to punch in the vagina. And if you don't know what a vagina is, I'm going to tell you what a vagina is. Because again, married to a urologist, we went through residency and all of that. And when you deal with very, very obese men, what happens in their nether regions gets inverted, and it ends up looking like what the urologists, the residents would call a vagina.
Well, considering how many years it's been since he's actually seen it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I cannot, and people, you know, if you follow me, I do not like mocking people's physicality, but when they're such evil fucks, it really makes it easy. It just is. He is such a piece of shit. And I love how somebody who has never served in the military and is probably a total coward is so gung-ho about killing people and talking about Muslim terrorists as if that's what Palestinians just are, Muslim terrorists. As if he has no concept, because he doesn't. This is also, like, to me, a poster child of many in Congress as to why we have a serious education problem in this country.
Z, we've talked about this. Jen, we've talked about this. I will repeat this until the cows come home. Always be skeptical of emasculated men, especially ones that are not in good physical shape, that are not physically attractive. And when they obtain a measure of power, they can be the most dangerous people on the planet. There is a revenge factor that goes on with people like Randy Fine, who want to inflict pain and suffering on as many people as possible. Because the fact is, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least, Randy Fine lives in pain and suffering every single day of his life. He is a one-track mind, power at all costs, at any cost.
He's evil.
And inflict that power as fast and as furiously as he can on as many people as he can. I am going to scream this from the rooftops. Casey DeSantis, you thinking about running for governor off of your husband's name? Having back-to-back DeSantis's, why don't you do the state of Florida a real favor? Because you're a pretty gifted politician. Why don't you go to District 6 and primary?
This guy isn't stupid. And when he was young, he looked like a decent-looking frat boy, right? He was born in Arizona, raised in Kentucky, graduated from Harvard with a bachelor's degree in government, and earned a master's in business degree from Harvard Business School. He worked at McKinsey and Company, which is where a lot of this propaganda comes from. He became a corporate executive working in casino gambling. So you can imagine working in casino gambling, you have to be somewhat of a narcissist and somewhat sociopathic. And then he moved to Florida and ran. So the dude, looking at young pictures of him, he's not some ugly guy. You know, I'm not disagreeing with you, but he's not some ugly guy. He's not some guy from poverty with a chip on his shoulder. He is the cream of the cream, la creme de crop. You know, he's an elitist frat boy from Harvard who went to preparatory school when he was younger. He's that guy. He's that guy. He's that same kind of guy that are getting radicalized, the same kind of Gen Z dude that's getting radicalized right now into the far right in the United States, and that are going and signing up so that they can fight with Israel to kill the Arabs. He's the same kind of guy. He looks like this now. He did not look like this when he was younger. He's a preppy frat boy. He gives me the vibes of a guy that would slip you a roofie on a Saturday night.
I was going to say, you know, he's been involved in stuff where there's girls that were probably paid for their silence. This guy, though, is the same guy just that we've had the misfortune of having in our state legislature. This is someone who is anti women's reproductive freedom. This is someone who is anti-cannabis. This is someone who really feels that he is entitled to control what other people do. He's one of those, like, they really do. He thinks that he's just entitled to tell other people what they can do.
These are the commanders in Gilead. You know, that's the kind of guy that this asshole is. That Randy Fines is.
We'll finish out his wonderful statement.
Deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
We heard in Brooklyn.
And I agree with that last part. But, and if you took that and he was talking about with an Israel flag in the background and he said it's a deep screwed up culture, and I'd be like, yes, I agree. It is. It's a very disturbed.
Yeah. And if he was talking about Zionism, we would agree 1,000.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it is. It's a very deeply disturbed culture and it needs to be dealt with accordingly. I agree. Israel needs to be lanced like a fucking boil.
You know,
honestly,
the other thing
remember the movie Outbreak? You remember the movie Outbreak where they were going to drop the whatever it was to just get rid of all the people so they didn't spread their disease? That's the kind of shit that's going to need to happen in Israel. Quite honestly, those people cannot get along and function with the rest of us on this planet. They are incapable. They are incapable of functioning on this planet with the rest of us.
No, I agree.
If we were in a sandbox, they would be the kid that wasn't allowed to come back.
Well, he's also, like I said, he puts the ugliest of ugly faces on everything that's going on right now. That's what you have to remember. He was far and away the worst legislator in all of Tallahassee, and that is a very hard goal to achieve. But he got there. Despised by everybody. Despised by
the worst in Florida legislature is a pretty damn low bar.
Exactly. But so can you imagine being the least liked person in that legislature?
Governor DeSantis despises him.
He's the Ted Cruz of Florida.
Governor DeSantis despises him. Like, despises him. And for whatever reason, Trump gave him his blessing.
Yes, because he's a Zio freak.
And that's where I wish people would understand that anyone out there, even we have our libertarian friends, we have people that are big supporters of Trump, but you cannot tell me that Trump is not bought and paid for at the bare minimum by Miriam Adelson. Miriam Adelson and her people said Randy Fine goes to Congress. That's it.
Going back to the dehumanization, think about this for a moment. This happened, and who is the first people? Fox News is like, let's call up Randy Fine and get his input on what's going on here. That's
it's the equivalent of calling up Wasserman Schultz and saying, let's get her opinion, because we have to hear what she has to say. There are 535 federally elected officials in this country, and you're picking Randy Fine to talk to? That's who you need to hear from?
It's the dehumanization. The dehumanization is the point. You know, I did an interview last week with Abby Martin, and we were talking about the impact.
I saw that. It was awesome, by the way. Sorry, it was awesome.
It was, man, she brings fire every time.
I love her. I love her.
My
love might be unrequited. I don't know. Have we
Could
reached
you
out?
help? Could you help? We would love to get her on the channel. We've been trying to do it for a while.
Yeah,
she's
busy.
She's busy. Yeah, she is.
I know, but I don't take it personal.
Yeah, absolutely. She does amazing work. But we were talking about the escalation of dehumanization, even through and especially through the Democratic Party when this was happening, leading up to the election. Also, as soon as this genocide started, you had who were the faces? Matthew Miller gaslighting us every single day. And who else? Who was the other guy that looked like Count Chocula?
Kirby.
Yeah, Brian Kirby. There were several in this administration.
And Jean-Pierre, whatever her name, whatever. Yeah.
And they were gaslighting us every press conference. They were gaslighting us, and sometimes they put brown faces up and tokenize them so that they can gaslight us that a genocide isn't happening. But the last administration dehumanized Palestinians, dehumanized protesters. You had Democratic governors cracking heads at college campuses, and Democratic mayors. You had just the sheer language on media that refused to call the blockade what it was, the initial blockade. I'm talking about on October 9th.
Yeah.
When food, water, electricity was going to be cut off, and they were telling 1.5 million people to evacuate to Rafah. in 24 hours, gave people 24 hours to evacuate. That's when we knew immediately this is a genocide. Genocide is the aim. This is what is coming down the pike. We knew what was coming down the pike, but the media pushed so hard to dehumanize the Palestinian people. Anyone that came on and was like, this blockade is dangerous, having people move this fast. Well, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? And then they didn't stop until now. That's what it's been ever since. And people can say, yes, any mass atrocities are a problem, but you have to look at things in a historical context. No, but this is nuanced, but I don't want to consider that nuance, that apartheid has been happening and that 1,500 children were imprisoned, held hostage by the Israeli government, and many of them from the West Bank, so that those children could be used as leverage to force people out of their homes so that settlers could take their homes in the West Bank and other regions of Israel, just to push out anyone of Arab descent or Palestinians out of their homes so that they could take them.
You know,
in Jenin, the West Bank, that this was common. This was happening all the time. 1,500 children held hostage. 1,500 children held hostage.
Currently? You're talking about currently.
Currently, and I'm talking about back in 2022.
Yeah.
And I had covered stories in 2021, 2022, 2023. You know, way back, I've been covering this for a decade or more, but of bombs, there was no ceasefire. Of how many bombs were being dropped in Gaza in that time frame, hundreds of people were murdered by Israel, by Israeli forces, civilians, before October 7th. That context.
You mean Linda Thompson, whatever her name is?
Terrorism.
You mean whatever her name is, was wrong? You know, she said there was no invasions of Gaza before October 7th. Did you see that clip from what's her name? Yeah, that made me jump out of my skin.
It's all dehumanization. And this shooting last night, they are going to use it as a chilling effect to silence all of us. And I'm not saying I'm nearly as afraid as the people that are enduring a literal genocide, but I am afraid. What are they going to start monitoring our media? Are they going to come for press people like us that are covering this? Are they going to come for the Abby Martins of the world that are fucking heroes?
Yeah,
that's the goal.
But they already have. That's why people like Richard Medhurst and Max Blumenthal get held up and detained and or arrested. And yes, that is what they're going to do. And there is a risk for speaking out. And that is the whole point, is to try to shut it down. That's what they're going to try to do. But yeah, and to make people be scared and shut up.
Abby Martin is one of the toughest people I've seen and is the true definition of a journalist, despite what a lot of other people do. Jordan's a journalist. You know, we know who the real journalists are. And Abby, despite her stoic nature, had this to say to Zaina the other day, and this is something that should really stick. It should really get to people regarding Zionists.
We saw the writing on the wall. We knew that the status quo couldn't hold. We knew that the Democratic Party was the inevitability, would pave the way for Trump. And now here we are. We're in Trumpism. We're living the authoritarian nightmare that we all knew was coming. And to your point, I mean, Palestinians are the first, but they're not the last. This is a warning shot. And it's a testing ground for all the surveillance technology, all the Silicon Valley overlords who now curate our reality. All of this is coming home to roost.
I also wanted to add that I think that part of what happened with that shooting is also very potentially a false flag. I think that they are realizing they're losing the PR war globally. I think that they're panicking. And when I say they, I mean like the Zios. I think that you see it within Benjamin Netanyahu communicating with his people and saying, look, I have to give them a little bit of aid. If I don't give them a little bit of aid, then they won't let us keep killing the people. So I got to give them a little bit of aid. That's what I think when you see this kind of thing happen. To me, it screams false flag. It screams we're trying to get the sympathy back. We're trying to change the discussion, and we're trying to distract. That's what it says to me.
Also,
well, they fired at ambassadors. Oh, go ahead, Peter. But they fired at ambassadors the day before.
Yeah, you've got the firing at the EU diplomats. And on top of that, the Zionists make it, that's the thing I give them credit for. They are so freaking transparent in how they coordinate. You can't help but think it was a false flag because of how they're trying to exploit what happened. The fact that they were trying to push the narratives out there immediately, which of course weren't true. Shocker. But that's why it is so detrimental to allow this to go on. We have to nip this in the butt. And like I said, they're going to exploit it. They're going to use it for all it's worth. HR 867 is going to get another vote, which is the anti-Israel boycott bill. That's going to come up for a vote again. But we have to crush this ideology. And I'm going to play one more clip from Abby, which explains why this ideology has to fall. It's not even a question of whether people will identify as Zionists. You can do whatever the fuck you want. You will not be pulling the levers of power in the United States anymore. That is our mission, is to completely dismantle their power vacuum in Washington, D.C. and around the world.
Palestinian lives are non-negotiable to me. I'm sorry. Like I agree that Trump is very scary domestically. He's a fascist. He ran on a fascist platform, but I in good conscience cannot vote for genocide of my brothers and sisters. Do you understand that? And how dare you tell Palestinians and lecture to them that they should have? That's sick.
The bar's in hell. The bar was in hell. And so why is it so shocking now that we have rampant fascism? That we've just fully gone in the direction of rampant fascism.
Exactly, Zainab. When you normalize this kind of behavior, especially abroad, the U.S. empire is a global fascist military dictatorship, actually, and tens of millions of people are living under its boot and suffering every day. And the people who are conscious of that and have international solidarity and have a lens that's a perspective to see outside of our country already knew that.
Yeah. I always think that's one of the biggest problems we have in this country is most people don't have a passport. Most people have never left. Most people have never been anywhere else. So we're really in a bubble in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying to any fault of their own. I'm not saying that like most people can't afford to do those things. It's not like, but that sort of, I feel ocean of isolation allows us to just be so much more ignorant of other countries and other places. Also, the fact that we don't get paid holiday. I would argue, like, there's countries where people don't make a lot of money, but they still get paid holiday and they could still actually go places and do things. So, I mean,
and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to get a passport. You know, it's $150 doesn't sound like a lot.
No, it is.
And you have to travel, you have to do all this other stuff. So it can cost up to like a couple $100s or several $100s to get a passport once you've done everything you have, jumped through all the hoops you have to get one.
Yeah. So it's just not available to me. And I get that. And flying from here to anywhere else is also really, cost prohibitive. Whereas if you live in the UK, it's pretty cheap to go to France. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's just so many more options to cultural, cross-pollination that we do not have here. No offense to my Canadian friends. But, like we're somewhat limited in that. We have very poor worldview. And we are very, we think we're all that in a bag of chips, and we're really not.
Despite that, 70% of now the number is increasing. The majority of people in this country want us to stop bombing the babies.
Oh, yeah.
To think that that the number is only 70%. 30% think we should bomb babies. That's nice.
You're always half empty, aren't you, Peter? You got to look at it. You got to be half empty, don't you?
Marco Rubio has revoked thousands of student visas from campuses where these pro-Hamas terrorists. This is coming from Ayal Yacobi, who I said is one of the very worst Zionist Mossad-employed people, have taken over buildings. And it's only going to get worse. But I will tell you, while it gets worse, other people start to wake up. I didn't think that the ultimate fence sitter in corporate media, who of course is Piers Morgan, would somehow have his epiphany moment and actually call out the Israel government. But he did do this, and he did it with Mehdi Hassan the other day.
can respond. So much gaslighting from the very beginning. Jon has been on the ground in Gaza, yeah, as an embed. I love it when Jon and Douglas Murray and these people say, oh, we've been on the ground in Gaza. Yeah, as guests of the Israeli military that's doing the killing, starving and maiming. And you've come back and done exactly what they wanted to do. You've done their propaganda for them. Journalists have not been allowed freely into Gaza. That's why every major media organization on planet Earth has said to the Israeli government, you must allow journalists in. The Palestinian journalists who are there have been killed in record numbers. Of course, Piers, you're right. They want to hide what they're doing. That's why they're killing the journalists there and blocking the journalists from coming in. This idea that he's been on the ground. Yeah, I did interview a doctor, a British plastic surgeon, Dr. Tom Patoka. And by the way, he wasn't in the European hospital because the hospital got bombed by Israel. So he was in another hospital, and he talked to me about how he has to treat patients who have maggots in their wounds. He has to treat patients without limbs. He has to treat children. I've interviewed multiple doctors on the ground in Gaza, actually in Gaza, not hanging around with Israeli military. And they've all said the same thing. American doctors, British doctors, Canadian doctors. They've all talked about how many kids they saw with sniper bullets to the head and chest. Israel does intentionally kill civilians. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant were indicted at the International Criminal Court.
Who is this fuck that's shaking his head no?
He's there to represent the Zios. You know, to keep it balanced for both sides.
We're not doing that.
No.
20 months later, you're still not doing that?
He's with them. He's one of the, I forget what his name, like who he is a, you know, his title.
I think he works directly. I don't think he was an IDF person because him and Mehdi got in a back and forth, I believe. And he was like, I can't remember now, but he's definitely a representative. He's a spokesperson for Israel. Regardless.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. He's a Zio mouthpiece.
Fair enough.
For precisely those charges, for killing, willful killing of Palestinians, for murder and persecution. That's why they've been indicted. That's why every human rights group in the world says war crimes are being committed. They've killed people holding white flags. We've seen it with our own eyes. They've bombed buildings without warning with families inside, like the Al-Dos family that I often cite in October 2023. They've dropped 2,000-pound bombs on refugee camps full of hundreds of people. They have killed 7 aid workers in a clearly marked World Central Kitchen aid convoy. They've bombed World Food Programme convoys, leading to Cindy McCain, the wife of the most pro-Israeli senator of my lifetime, to come out and condemn Israel for attacking aid workers. Jon wants you to ignore Cindy McCain and British and American doctors and human rights groups and your own lying eyes watching people with white flags being gunned down. He wants you to believe him and his Israeli military minders.
Okay, but can I also, and as much as I do appreciate that content, remind everyone that Mehdi did shill for Kamala in the end.
Of course.
And in the end, he fell in line. And it was very disappointing because I was like pleasantly surprised with how outspoken he had been up until that point. And then he fell in line.
Mm-hmm. They always get their mind right at the 11 o'clock hour because for them, it's a career. That's the bottom line.
He wouldn't even take the stance that like Mike Figueiredo took, which is, you know, I may get desperate enough to vote for her, but I don't know. I do not blame a single person who would not vote for her. And if she loses, I can completely understand why, because she won't change on this and it's horrendous. And she was an architect of this, you know, so he didn't. I saw some people like the, I can't remember her name. Her husband does Bad Hasbara.
Francesca
Fiorelatini. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No,
Fiorelatini, I think. Yeah. But she really struggled because she wanted to be coconut peeled or whatever. And then, but at the same time, she was like, you know, I've been criticizing her, but there's other things that are going on in the world, but I don't want to, you know, going on in our country, and we have to think about domestic policy. And she did this whole 3-hour live stream where people were kind of giving her hell about it. But Mehdi could have taken the stance that Mike Figueiredo took, which is I'm not going to tell anyone how to damn well vote because we have 2 genocidal, you know, candidates on the ticket, right? And I can understand somebody being afraid enough to vote for her because of what the type of fascism that's coming down the pike. But at the same time, she's complicit in genocide. But no, instead he decided to shill for Kamala and minimize her impact and make arguments like she was just VP. How much power does a VP really have? I'm so sick of shit like that. Like, if you're up there, you're on the hill, you're fucking vice president, you're one of the most powerful people on this planet. And you're not going to speak up, you're not going to do something because of some political wrangling you have to do. No, fuck that.
And this also has more to do with Piers Morgan, because I will tell you, I will never forgive Mehdi Hassan doing a hit job on Matt Taibbi, just because Taibbi's politics doesn't line up with his. And Taibbi, and people could disagree with him on a number of different things, but that guy's a freaking journalist. And I am just tired of people not wanting to support somebody because their politics are different. Whatever they are, at the end of the day, there is a corporate structure that is in place that is breaking at the seams. Let it break, because even if Mehdi is wrong on everything else, he can get Piers Morgan to say this. This is good enough to at least know that the needle is moving in the direction it needs to on this issue.
Welcome back to Uncensored. Listen, you and I have talked about this war in Gaza for ever since it started, this phase of the 75-year conflict. And I have resisted going as far as you have done in your criticism of the Israeli government. I resist no more. I think we've reached common ground about what we view is happening and has been happening through this period of this blockade, which frankly is just starvation of the people there, including so many innocent young women and children. And I think that the incessant bombing and killing, and we don't know how many civilians have been killed, but it is on a daily basis. It looks like hundreds of people every day, with no apparent attempt, it seems to me, to have any real plan for how this ends or what happens when it ends, other than if you look at what Smodrich has been saying, probably the most right-wing member of a very right-wing government, he is talking in a genocidal language about kicking all the Palestinians out. So I think you and I have reached a place in the last few weeks where we are in agreement. But my question for you, Mehdi, is how does this end?
I don't know the answer to that question, Piers, and I'm glad we're in agreement. I'm
glad you joined us on the correct side of history. Thank you for that. Jeez Louise. And the smug guy sitting there. This way.
Well, don't worry, pal. Your check's in the mail. Covered in Palestinian blood, but the check is there. You can collect it.
The gaslighting's insane.
It is. It is.
Well, they say that about 4% of the population can be classified as sociopathic. Well, if that's the case, then
of a normal population.
Yes.
Okay, well, Israel, it's not a normal population.
Well, I don't think John Spencer's is Israeli, but he's definitely part of the payroll of the Israel lobby.
Then that counts.
I guess.
Then you're a Zio. You're on the payroll.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is, like, what percentage of sociopaths end up supporting the cause that is the Israel colonialization project? Probably pretty high. And in this case, is it refreshing to see that Piers Morgan is on the right side of history? Shouldn't have taken this long. But what it shows me is that he's aware that the tide has turned in such a way that if you're still defending Israel at this point, you're going to get marked. Like, that's basically what's going to happen. You're going to be marked, and you should be cast out and forgotten, as far as I'm concerned. That's what should happen to every last one of these sons of bitches.
Well, you'll notice a bunch of people now jumping ship and trying to come down. Like, that's what they're doing over in Europe now. Oh, maybe we should just, because, people aren't liking it so much. All of these people I believe are seeing the writing on the wall, and they want to come out on top of this, and they're not, because we have the receipts. This isn't Nazi Germany, where we don't have the ability to show what everybody was doing at the time. We know what everybody was doing. We know where you stood. We know what you said. We know what you printed. And as far as I'm concerned, I gave everybody at most a 3-week grace period after October 7th to get on the right side of history on this. And anybody who hasn't since then, you are just wrong. And you will have to live with that. There's no, yes, you can get onto the right side of history, and good for you if you do. To me, you don't exist. Like, I will not deal with anybody who did not get their head straight pretty quickly, just because you're not my people. But, more people are coming over now. So they're going to try to make it look like, I was with you all along.
Well, there's two things you can look at to understand how this propaganda works that's sort of outside of the political scene in a way, but would completely help you understand how Israel operates so you can see through the propaganda. And one of it is the cycles of abuse. Look at the cycles of abuse, research what Darvo is. Darvo's a tactic that narcissists use against their victims of abuse. Research the love bombing and abuse cycles. And you'll start to see, and research gaslighting specifically, just out front. And you'll start to see, and I've talked to people that have been in abusive relationships that have said that it feels like watching what Israel is doing every day on the television is triggering their PTSD, because hearing Hezbollah mouthpieces and Mossad mouthpieces, Israeli mouthpieces, is like listening to their ex-abusive husband, for instance, because it's the same tactics. The second thing you can do, watch some documentaries on cults. Read about NXIVM. Read about the way that they controlled the way that these cults control people. That's exactly what Israel is doing. That's what Zionism has cultivated, in a sense, is it's political cultism. And we're seeing it with MAGA. We can see it with vote blue no matter who people. There is so much cultism in our politics right now that it's dangerous. And Punch Up Pod said they're coming for Hassan right now for Mehdi.
Were they talking about Mehdi or? Oh, no. I don't know.
Hassan Piker, maybe.
Oh.
I know that he's been catching a lot of flack.
Yeah, but he sat and chatted with them for a little long, I think, from my understanding. He sat and really had a chat.
Mm.
We don't, Hassan, when he got stopped and detained coming in, people were saying that they weren't pleased that he was so chatty with the ICE, or not ICE, whoever it is, whoever the security is, whoever is holding him up without his rights at the airport.
The ATF and the Customs and Border Patrol.
Yeah, exactly. Giving him a hard time. We have no rights at the border, so we don't have rights anyway, but even less so there. But
Z, I want to cover one more topic before you go. Obviously, you've done an amazing job, as best you could, to try to garner some type of a left populist movement through electoral politics, through brand new Congress, and we all know how a lot of that kind of fell apart.
Do we?
As much as we all know, without violating non-disclosure agreements, yes.
Correct.
I never signed one of those.
Good for you.
There is going to be an immense amount of pressure to funnel people back to the Democratic Party, which we will see over the next year plus, because they're going to run with the Republicans cut Medicaid and gave tax breaks to the wealthy, which of course they did. But it also shows that this is just an endless cycle of just putrid behavior on both sides at all times. There is a solution to the austerity politics of the GOP, which of course is single-payer healthcare, which would eliminate this whole need for multiple levels of healthcare. You just need one, and that could solve all of it. We all know why the Democrats won't do it. Now, there is going to be a huge push for support for AOC. It's obvious why she and Bernie have been on this tour, although it's gotten kind of quiet. I don't know how long they think they're going to be able to keep up this charade if clips like this continue to circulate.
So as you guys know, or may not know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez does not let anyone inside her office, even if you're a constituent. So I brought her something, a reminder, and we're just going to slide it under the door to let them know that we came.
We've been watching for 19 months at this point. Children have their bodies mutilated on live stream, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is too weak and too scared to even speak up for the children in Palestine.
Could you imagine having all of those Post-it notes outside your office and never doing anything about it? Just letting them stockpile like that?
I live with a hoarder who uses Post-it notes, so I got to tell you, that's looking awfully familiar to me. It looks like the downstairs bedroom in my freaking house, but I understand the principle.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has shown us with her votes her silence and her actions that she's a Zionist. And
let's go back real quick. AOC voted yes on H.R. 888, reaffirming Israel's right to exist. Yes on H.R. 5917, sanctioning Palestinian resistance 2024. Yes on H.R. 966, debunked fake rape. You know, they're still peddling that crap. They're still doing it. They're still saying that that's true. Yes on H.R. 6679, anti-Palestinian immigration bill. Imagine that. Present on H.R. 5323, Iron Dome funding 2021.
If you guys go back to that date, there's an episode accordingly. I cannot tolerate voting present. Continue.
Yes on H.R. 1449, equates criticism of Israel, of Israeli state, with anti-Semitism. Very similar to H.R. 867, which will get another vote, guaranteed.
That she's a Zionist.
And she is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza.
Bullshit.
This has to be extra hard for you in some respects, Zaina. Like, I mean, you really put in the work in the first place that facilitated this project and got her to where she is and really went into it with the best intentions, really wanting to create a brand new Congress and really thinking that let's just get new people in there. And then this is what that turned into.
Well, we had a pro-Palestine, pro-Palestine, pro-BDS platform that she signed on to. And you know this, we would not endorse any kind of candidate, at least when I was there. That changed after I was removed, in part because I refused to support John Fetterman. But we would not support anyone who took money from AIPAC or the Israel lobbies, along with many other lobbies. But that was one of the lobbies that we were like, no, hell no. And they approached our candidates and harassed our candidates like crazy. You know that for sure.
No, they never approached me.
Oh, really?
I feel sad. Like, you know, it's kind of like I was never invited. I was never approached by AIPAC. I was never approached by any Zionist lobby organization, not once, either time I ran. Do you think they just looked me up and said, forget it, it's a lost cause?
They knew there was no point, which says that's great. That's a great attribute to your character.
I did have a meeting. I do remember the first time I ran, having a meeting with J Street. Like, you know, an interview, an endorsement interview. And this was, at this point, I was still sort of two-state solution. Could it work? Like, I wasn't anywhere where I am now, but it still wasn't where J Street wanted me to be. And so they were like, yeah, no, thank you. And I'm like, yeah, bye-bye. And that was it. And I am a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, which J Street didn't appreciate. So,
well, you know, back then, if you guys remember, and Peter knows, because in 2019, I was having long conversations with Peter about how I thought AOC was going to sell out. You know, Peter, we stayed up and I was drinking beers all sad and talking to Peter on the phone, depressed as hell back in 2019. Like, what am I going to do? I'm having an existential crisis. She's the most famous one and she's already selling out.
You can't organize an event like brand new Congress. You can't have Jen. You can't have Cori Bush. You can't have Jamal Bowman. You can't have all of these guys show up in DC. And she can't take 5 minutes to come over and give just a quick pep talk and wish everybody well and give some pointers about what it means to be a grassroots candidate. She was too busy to do that. And we know that I don't even think they were in session at the time. So the idea that she couldn't have made the time, talk about even then in her first term, forgetting the people that got her there. And the worst part about it is it doesn't matter that Alex is a scumbag. What matters is that it deters people from even getting involved, much less running for office. You turn everybody off. They just say, well, if Alex is going to sell out, then who the hell isn't going to sell out?
That's the point. That's the point. Zaina, isn't that what we were saying? This is what proves the experiment doesn't work. I mean, that and various other things, but like that's the case in point. Exactly.
And we thought that, if the money aspect wasn't there, and I think it's partially people struggling, regular working people, we frame things a lot in people are doing this to get rich because we don't have anything. And it's not that we would do things to get rich. We would be people that a lot of times would be more likely to pay our workers fairly and to treat people well and that sort of thing. But one of the things that scratch a liberal, true, Lila. One of the things that I learned, one of the biggest lessons that I learned is it's not just the money. It's not just not taking the corporate PAC money. It's power. These billionaires, like I was thinking about this yesterday, these billionaires like we're covering on our show, the Broligarchy that I'm working with Punch Up Pod on, they don't just want to get rich. They've already got all that. If that's what they wanted, they'd be out on a boat, on a yacht somewhere in the middle of the ocean.
Oh, they want to play God.
They want to play God. It's about power. And for somebody like AOC, it's about power. She was bragging. This pissed me off. 3 weeks ago, her campaign spokesperson posted, and Jen, you may have seen this too, and it would probably piss you off as well. She raised $9 million the last quarter because of this like thing that they're doing. Why the fuck does she need $9 million? And why are they for a quarter? Yeah, and why are they bragging about it? And why did they come out and say we paid our $250,000 dues that the Dem Party expects for us so that we can prove that we're playing ball with the Democratic establishment? What are you doing? Why are people giving her $9 million? This is a person who's already in office. Election's a year away. Why don't you give that money to the people in London, Kentucky down here who had a category in my hometown that had a category 4 tornado rip through and kill 19 people right here in my backyard? Why don't you give money to Palestine? Why aren't you giving money to the teachers union? Why aren't you? Oh, what, Peter?
Let's not talk about those things. That's not important.
Well, we can also talk about what she does end up doing with the money, because she also then ends up donating it to other candidates, and she will donate it to complete liberal Dem shills, especially when they're being challenged by somebody who is an actual leftist. And when that happens, and the only time she had the balls to stick up for anybody to help a progressive in there was only when Jessica Cisneros challenged Henry Cuellar, and it was only because he's anti-choice. Otherwise, they will not challenge a Democratic incumbent, and she's a coward.
When you bring up things like real life issues, like economic, environmental destruction of where people live because of a tornado, that shouldn't even have to be addressed. We should live in a country where FEMA will take care of that, no questions asked. But that's not the world that we live in. We have two problems. We have the government bureaucratic corruption of organizations like FEMA, and then you have the austerity component of treating FEMA like it's not that important. And that if people in economic plighted areas of the country especially get hit, fuck them. Not our problem. That's it. So she's as bad as anybody because she knows what's going on. She pretends that she's, was born yesterday and a lot of things, but she's not. She's extremely cold and calculating. You can see right through her sweet, sweet face. It's all bullshit. All of it. Everything is about a political opportunism now. And she is going to run. She's going to have a lot of money. She's going to be popular. And we can only hope that our platform, along with many others, will have some effect on at least breaking through with people saying, you know how you thought you were thinking about donating, door knocking, phone banking for Alex? You probably
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. And I will tell people something, I hear all the time, well, she's only one member of Congress. What can she do policy-wise? You're right. It's only one vote. But in our culture, in the United States, real power is clout. being able to reach people, the platform she has. So do not tell me that if AOC came out and called this a genocide when she should have called it a genocide, if she stood up against the Israel lobby instead of being a freaking coward, because people like me, Jen, Peter, the people that are on the ground, that are journalists, that are covering this every day in Gaza with a target on their back, getting targeted and blown up. And you're going to tell me that AOC needs to be careful so that she keeps her political position. Oh, fuck that. No.
No, she's officially the enemy. The truth is Bernie is officially the enemy. These are people that are now purposefully, consciously working against progress.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of liberals saying, that, Kamala couldn't make those political risks or so-and-so couldn't make those political risks. Take your political risks and shove it. Like, give me a break. Why are you putting these people up on a pedestal, the most powerful people in the country, and then whining, political risk, when you have people like Mahmoud Khalil and Romesa Ozturk, or the guy that was at where was it, UNC the other day, who had his, was it UNC that had his diploma snatched from him, a valedictorian, after graduation because he dared to speak up in his speech.
You're talking about Logan. We covered him. His little badass self.
I know. And if those people can have courage, if the people that are coming in the streets to defend their neighbors against ICE can have courage, then somebody like AOC damn well could speak up. It's so ridiculous to make that excuse for our politicians.
They're cowards.
Mm-hmm.
We'll finish it up.
And bringing hostages home.
May that image be seared in her brain every time she has to walk past her office.
I know it's sucking. Well, you know what sucks though for the rest of us that aren't that shit is now seared in my brain forever. See, this is the moral injury. This is the problem. I am so angry. That is one of the biggest causes of rage. I mean, my rage exists on many levels. I'm angry that I'm angry. I'm angry that I feel this way. I'm angry that I'm seeing what I'm seeing. I will never not be angry about this. There is not enough therapy and cannabis in the world that is going to ever make me not feel so enraged about this. It's probably taken years off my life. And I'm just here. I'm suffering from what, and that was something that Logan, his name is Logan Rozos. And what he said in his speech is that it's a moral injury. We are suffering a moral injury. And I thought that was just brilliant because that is how I feel. And while it pales in comparison to actual injury, the repercussions and the ramifications of the moral injury will never go away. We will be, the karma that is set in motion from this will be affecting all of us for the rest of our lives. And it'll come up in so many things politically, but I don't even mean that. So I'm just saying karmically, we are so screwed for so long. That's what I think.
See,
amen to that.
No, it's always with a heavy heart. I can only imagine how difficult it is to talk about these things. But as Jen often says, at the bare minimum, we have to bear witness to what is happening. We have to document this because much like General Eisenhower said when he liberated Dachau, take as many pictures as you can, film as many videos as you can, because there will come a point in the not too distant future where people will stand up and say that this never happened. And much like the gas chambers, there will come a point where if the Zionist movement still exists, we're working to dismantle it. But if it does, they will do everything in their power to try to rewrite history and say that they did not genocide Gaza, that they did not drop those bombs, that they did not block that aid, that they systematically committed mass murder on a genocidal level. So it is up to us to do what we can to continue to grow our network. It is a blessing and it's a curse that our channel has grown and it is growing. We got to 350 live viewers tonight, which means we're crossing a level now.
That's great.
Very exciting.
But at the same time, these kids have been mass murdered, and they're going to continue to be mass murdered. We have to make sure that they do not die in vain.
We can't let what happened at Sabra and Shatila in the 1980s, where there was mass massacres of the Sunni Muslims, and then at the hands of Israel, and then there was a global outcry, and then the dismantling of that to the point that people don't even have it in their historical memory anymore. We can't have where Iraq has now been basically erased from people's memory, Afghanistan erased from people's memory. How is this happening? But it is. People aren't, there are many Gen Z that don't even know what Gitmo is, because it's not being taught. And there's people that are older that are forgetting what that was like. I mean, and this isn't about me, but this is just a little bit of an indication of our civil liberties have been stripped away for a long time. I mean, I applied for a passport for multiple years, and because my last name was Abdullahi, I changed it today so that I could get hired and get work. But still, my first name does make things difficult still, but it's hard out there when you're from a Middle Eastern country, or, I'm half. My father was an Iranian immigrant. My mother's Scots-Irish Appalachian. So rowdy all around.
That's such an interesting combination. But that's why you look as cool as you look. Like, you got really the very cool combination of features. No, it's interesting. Like, you definitely, I can definitely see Iranian, but I can also see Scotch-Irish. Like, I can see, it's really, yeah, it's a very good blend. Like, I have this, if my son ever sees this, he'll freaking flip out if I say this, but I've always had this dream that he ends up with an Asian girl, because I have this desire for Asian grandbabies. I don't know what it is.
Oh, no, you're doing the Asian baby meme, Jen.
It's terrible. I know it's terrible. But here's the thing: what people don't understand is my son has always looked very Asian. I would get stopped by Asian people in restaurants asking me when he was a baby and even older, is his dad Asian? Because he really does. And I had some woman tell me, God, he'd make so much money if he was modeling in South Korea. I'm like, okay, he's not going to model in South Korea. But he just has this look to him. And so I always thought it would be a really lovely combination. That's
oh my God. I'm just so glad that I don't worry about shit like this. But
but I was going to say my, not to discount the Asian baby. But I was going to say that, my passport, I couldn't get a passport for years. I was denied. But then also my brother and I were on the no-fly list for a while.
Why though? Why did they say
because of our name?
They don't have to give a reason to deny you a passport, even though you're a citizen?
Right. Or your name. That was part of the Patriot Act.
Interesting.
Crazy. But
and so when we talk about civil liberties being taken away, I thought, what if it was scary back then, because there was a thought in the back of my mind always, what if I have to flee?
Yeah. Well, no,
because of what's happening.
Yeah.
So you've been able to get a passport or no?
I was going to, but I haven't been able to afford to. And now I'm afraid to try again a little bit.
That's just so unfortunate. That's really frustrating. Well, the Patriot Act should have never been put in place in the first place. That was that false flag that they used to take away those rights. And now we're just going to keep working on that. And thank you, Obama, for continuing that.
But remember, Hillary Clinton voted for it with conviction. Because she knew
almost all Democrats did. Almost every Democrat in the House voted to support. There were only a few, and I think Al Franken was one of them. There were only a few in Congress that stood up against the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
And then there were a couple Republicans. Rand Paul was always against it, and I think that Thomas Massey has spoken out against it since. And then John McCain did give his concerns on overreach with the Patriot Act, but still ended up voting for it.
Yes.
But Mitt Romney, I think, gave some concerns too, but most of them voted for it. Almost everyone voted for it. Hello World said not Ted Kennedy. That's interesting.
Interesting too, yeah. Well, I mean,
but-
yeah, because I guess what it is certain people that feel that their political clout is substantial enough that they're not necessarily threatened. They don't feel threatened to necessarily take a stand on things that other people might not feel they have the security to do. And Kennedys do have that sort of luxury. They just do.
And DHS and ICE aren't new, They're new. They're not. They're 2 decades old.
We don't
now
need
at this
them.
point.
And we don't need them. We never needed ICE. We still don't need ICE. I actually read the Patriot Act when it came out. I was that crazy person. I was clerking for a federal judge at the time. And I remember having this whole discussion in our little group saying, okay, first of all, there's no weapons of mass destruction. That's a bunch of bullshit. I knew it was a false flag at the time. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I read the Patriot Act when I'm like, this was the purpose. This right here was the purpose of all of that, was to be able to put this kind of policy forward. And most of the people, when they voted on it, hadn't read it because they say they didn't have time to read it. Okay, fine. But most of them haven't read it since either, and they still keeping it going. So, it was horrifying. I remember reading it and making little notes and noting that, okay, so the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendments are no longer with us. Okay, then let's just keep signing up for that shit. And I remember that's pretty horrifying. And none of them had even read it. I'm like, okay, so we no longer have 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments, which is why for so many years, I kind of would laugh at the Second Amendment enthusiasts. I'm like, where were you guys when 4, 5, and 6 were getting taken out? You know what I'm saying? We kind of need those too. The Second Amendment should be protecting those, but I'm just saying.
And everything that's happening now that the Israel lobby is able to do through AIPAC, that our current administration is trying to do, their latest anti-BDS bill that they're trying to pass, equating anti-Semitism with, being just against Israel, that false equivocation, all of that, everything that ICE is doing with the migrants, all of that is tied directly back to the Patriot Act. That is the starting point of so much of what we are seeing today. Almost every fascist policy that, within the DOJ and the DHS is the Patriot Act, because the DHS would not exist without the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act founded the DHS.
Well, that almost makes you wonder. It almost makes you wonder if 9/11 was an inside job.
It doesn't make me wonder. We know that. We don't know exactly how and exactly who, but we know that they knew. We know that they knew it was coming. We know that they knew who the people were. We know that they were Egyptians and Saudis. We know that none of them had anything. We know all of these things. The Tower 7 is also ridiculous, that whole thing that happened. And I'm not saying I know how or why or who, but it is definitely not kosher. Okay.
Can I add something to that, Jen? Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying it reeked from the beginning. I thought once I read the Patriot Act, that was when it started becoming clear to me as to, okay, now I understand. Now I understand why they created that. So it just sort of fell into place. But yeah.
Yeah, and Benjamin Netanyahu was on the news about a month and a half before the towers were hit, saying, well, the Americans will understand when something like the Twin Towers are hit, which is fucking crazy. Like, what? And I will say, regardless of whether I believe that there's definitely shady stuff going on there, but regardless, they used it as a tool nonetheless. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with so we can kind of talk about, and I think people should be suspicious of the shooting that happened last night.
Exactly.
But also all this violence people are seeing. What do you think that does to people's souls and their psyches, seeing that every single day? So you're going to demonize this guy more. You can say, yes, any violent act like that is immoral. But you're going to demonize him more than you are the people that are blowing up and starving children that led this person to this act. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah,
like
this is where,
his
to
soul
me,
to the point that he did this, even if it's not a false flag and it's legit, you know,
Yeah.
and this guy did this, he was driven to it by seeing mass atrocities every single day for the last 20 months.
Yeah. Well, this is where I think it's very akin to the Luigi Mangione thing. It's like, yeah, no, that might not be the answer. But when you see the violence and what is happening, and I do consider denial of healthcare violence, and that is violence perpetrated on us on the regular by the oppressor. So when you see that continuously, and someone like Brian Thompson, who has blood all over his hands and signs death warrants to people and knows he's signing death warrants to people and doesn't give a shit, but just does it with a pen. So that's okay. And we don't pay attention to the thousands and hundreds of thousands of people he's responsible for killing. But he gets killed, and oh, now we got it. Now we got to look at it. And it's the same thing. So it's okay. And what it really does show you is that Palestinians to them are lesser. They don't care. It only matters that the two people that were killed were Jewish or white.
And they weren't.
Not Jewish, Christian, but not Jewish, but
But it's
white.
anti-Semitism. They can't get their story straight.
No, but white and Israeli related. So why would somebody who, like Luigi, been watching his violence his whole life in the form of healthcare denial and healthcare issues and healthcare problems, not then think violence could be the answer? You don't get to be a violent society all around the world and be the world's largest exporter of violence and not expect it to happen at home. And I've been saying that for years.
Bragging about killing people, bragging about how he's going to level Gaza and that being normalized, and the US still funding them and not stopping it. Regardless of whether or not this was a false flag or not, the outcomes, that the way that it's going to be utilized by the Israeli propaganda machine is going to be the same. It's going to be the same. They're going to criminalize people saying free Palestine because that's the thing he shouted when they were bringing him in. They're going to say that is terrorist speak. So if you say that, you are basically equating you to a terrorist. I believe that's coming down the pike. They're going to use it to crack down on protesters. They're going to use it to make the excuse to deport more people. They're going to use it to crack down and potentially start cracking down on media outlets like ours, like Status Quo or Punch Up Pod or Generational Change or My Bullhorn Bulletin. They're going to use it to crack down on journalists that are doing work and people like Abby Martin. So regardless of I believe it's fishy as hell. Something in my gut, red flags up everywhere, right? But at the same time, I can understand how somebody could be driven to this. So it may not be. Regardless, one thing I know for sure is Israel is already using scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, Peter. Israel's going to use this to and the Israel lobbies and the imperialist, U.S. imperialists are going to use this regardless to crack down on speech and to crack down on freedoms.
Well, let's keep putting the pedal to the metal, because as they get tougher, we have to get tougher as well. But we know that a corner is being turned. That's why they're tightening the screws as tightly as they can. But you can only hold the people down for so long. As Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people all the time. You can fool all the people some of the time. You can't fool all the people all the time. And that's the stage that we're in. We are not going to be fooled anymore, as the WHO once said. Appreciate you being here, Z. Keep fighting the good fight. And I'll see you co-hosting with me in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Oh, enjoy your trip. I'm so jealous. I've always wanted to go there. Where are you going?
I'm going to London and Scotland, and then my boys are coming back, and I'm going by myself to Ireland, which I'm very excited about. And I have just a rental car, and I'm just going to drive the island.
Be safe.
Beautiful.
I am very excited. I will be sending like videos and clips because I feel like we're getting so many new people, and then I'm going to be leaving, and we're sort of doing this little rebrand thing. So I'm going to make sure to be sending clips and commentary so that we, keep it going.
Well, you are going to, you're going to totally, I hope you have an amazing time. You deserve this.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here, pal.
All right. See you guys soon. Bye. Good night.
Z, always one of our favorites. And Paul, thank you very much for subscribing. We appreciate you being here. All of you guys that are here that have hit that.
Yeah, we do. Thank you guys very much. It's very helpful. And we are really trying to build a coalition. And every person who joins and then subscribes to someone else, and then it's everybody who connects everybody, that's how this is going to have to be. That's how we have to do this, because it's not going to come from electoral politics. It's got to come from building these networks and coalitions. And the more people that are connecting all of that, the better.
Make sure you've hit that like button. Make sure that you subscribe, but also a big shout out to our supporters that are here this evening. And our super chats, of course, have been on fire. Mark J, thank you for the $2. Thank you for your consistent reporting on the genocide. Thank you for being one of our consistent supporters. Vera Olaf's daughter. How would you say that, Jen?
Oh, for the love of God, I can't know how to say that.
Vera Scandinavia.
Vera Scandinavia.
Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Really
no generalizations on people there.
Jesus is God. Thank you for the 2. I'm not sure where that's from. Just because Israel is bad doesn't mean Arabs are innocent. Well, here's the thing. You could say that about...
Isn't that a euro?
Maybe.
I think it's a euro.
You could say that about every culture. There's good and bad with everybody. The problem is Zionism as a whole is a psychopathic cult movement. That's what they are. And if you need further proof that that's what they are, look at how they've reacted to what happened in DC. The dehumanization of everything that is not Israel, Zionism, and the equating of Judaism to Zionism, which is a sin within itself, is a prime example of that. So,
I have a problem with this also, because it's just because Israel is bad doesn't mean Arabs are innocent. That's an illogical statement. It doesn't work. It's like you're not comparing equal things. First of all, Israel is a vile white supremacist apartheid nation state that is in violation of international law. Arabs, which is a term that I don't like anyway, actually, because I don't like the term Arabs, because of whom are you speaking? Exactly. Are you speaking of people who speak Arabic? Are you speaking of people from Syria? Are you speaking of people from Egypt? Are you speaking of people from Palestine? Who are you speaking of when you say Arabic? And yes, there are Arabic peoples that aren't nice and do horrible shit or are assholes. Abso-friggin-lutely. That's not what we're talking about. Just like when we talk about racists in this country, we're not talking about it from the perspective of some people don't like some people. We're talking about a systemic problem. Israel is a system of oppression, supremacy, and apartheid. Whether or not there are Arabic individuals of whatever, nationality or whatever religion that aren't nice people is completely irrelevant. First of all, that size of what you are probably thinking of as the Arabic population, yeah, that's billions of people. Of course, there's not all such good people. That's just, nobody thinks that. But you don't compare that with a vile nation state. They're two completely different things. And Israelis, for the most part, with very rare exception, there's a few. You've got your refuseniks that are having to keep doing time in Israel for not serving in their vile IOF. So you do have some, but for the most part, Israelis do believe that they are entitled to have a Jewish state and that that state is entitled to oppress the people in that state that are not Jewish. So even though they might not be on board with what's going on in Gaza and they might not support further expansion in the West Bank, right? That's as liberal Zio as you're going to get. At the end of the day, they support the concept of an ethno-state.
They sure do.
And that is vile. In order to have an ethno-state, you need to conduct an ethno-cleanse. That's how it works. So the state of Israel is based on supremacy and ethnic cleansing. And that has nothing to do with whether or not people that are Arabic might not be such nice people.
Rami,
or whoever in that group. Yeah.
Rami, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. I believe you're new and we really appreciate you being here. So glad we've made a great impression right off the bat. Yalabite, one of our consistent supporters in the super chats. Thank you so much for the $1.99. District 6 will give the seat back to a DeSantis. Well, I would say that Casey DeSantis would be better suited going to Congress. She comes off like a DC person anyway.
I don't like her, but she ain't Randy Fine.
Absolutely not.
Way better than that.
You can live with her. She's a, She's another one who plays for the cameras and all that, but she's
a GOP Barbie doll, but that's I still prefer that than to Randy Fine.
She's not an evil, loathsome fuck like that piece of shit. Not even close. Hey, I'm going to play some games. Thank you for the $9.99. Fine reeks of the same. Talk about, I didn't even see that talk about transition. Fine reeks of the same pay-to-play loyalists that Brian Mast smells of. Agreed. These are traitors to the USA, period. Agreed. They lie every time they are confronted and should be deported at the very least. Jen, I wouldn't argue.
Oh, please. But and take your genocidal Israeli friends with you that have been coming over here like freaking overflow since 2014. We're infested with those. So yeah, take them with you. Bye-bye.
Rami, thank you for gifting 1 generational change membership. It was very nice of you to do that. And
Anton, quick answer for Anton. Casey is DeSantis's wife. And quick shout out to, was that Harashnu who said about that Iranians are not Arabs? Yes, I know. And that's what's so frustrating, because they think the people that anybody who uses the term Arabs really doesn't assume that they're all the same. That is just all the same. And now there is a big group of them that kind of are. There is, like, your Syrians, your Lebanese, your Jordanian, like there's definitely the Levant peoples, the part of Iraqi, like that are similar, but they were one people before, England and France cut it up into different kingdoms. So there are some of them in that region that are similar.
Philip Blair, thank you for being a member for 4 months, and always great to see you. What would Simon Wiesenthal do, Jen?
Simon Wiesenthal. First of all, and I like that Philip's bringing that up, because what Simon Wiesenthal would do is what the Hind Rajab Foundation is doing. The Hind Rajab Foundation, if you guys are not familiar with it, please check it out. I believe it's based in Belgium, but they are hunting down it's in Belgium.
I just had to, come on.
That's not the same thing. Please, why are you doing that? Are
I'm
you
not
asking me where Holland is? So
Dr. Van Nostrand.
So the Hind Rajab Foundation is going to be, and has started hunting down these IOF soldiers. Well, they're murderers, aren't really soldiers, but when they leave Israel and they go to other countries. So they are starting to go after them and bring them up on charges and bring them in front of the International Criminal Court. And that has already started happening. So what would Simon Wiesenthal do is he'd probably say, donate to the Hind Rajab Foundation.
Iranian Kiddo, thank you so much for the $9.99. If your guest thinks Kurds and minorities are abused in Iran, see what neighboring Turkey is doing to the Kurds.
Oh.
Iranian president is half Kurdish, and Azeri is the supreme leader of Azerbaijani ethnic.
Yeah.
Well, I can't speak to that. Jen, can you?
No, well, what I will say is this. My entire life, I have felt bad for the Kurds. My entire life, I have, like my adult life, where I've just always been amazed at how shitty everyone treats the Kurds. Why don't you leave the fucking Kurds alone? They just want to live.
Why don't you leave Yemen alone?
Well, Yemen's, I mean, the fact that Turkey is shittier to them than they are in Iran doesn't make me feel any better. But in general, yeah, I think Turkey is so horrible to the Kurds. And well, everyone is mean to the Kurds. And I don't even, and the truth, here's the truth, I don't know Kurdish people. But I just, this can't be okay. Like, it's just not.
Yalabai, thank you so much for the $4.99. Zios think they walk over the left, but they better wait when the anti-Zio right-wing voice will get louder and powerful. Sleeping
exactly.
Giant. It's already happening.
It is. Yeah.
They're not taking any shit, which is what makes them
just like we had Clint on here.
Exactly. Clint ain't with that shit. Luke Rakowski, he ain't with that shit. They're all CanCon. They're the populist right. The libertarian right, they are not with this shit at all.
I saw someone in the chat. I can't remember who. Call out if you know I'm talking about you. That said, I am MAGA and anti-Zio.
Yeah,
So
Oh,
that's, I mean, there's a wide assortment.
If there is one thing that the level, and there is the overwhelming majority of MAGA are level-headed people. It is always the outliers that people always get picked on, that they always pick. What you will see from the true America First MAGA supporters, they can see clear as day that the people who are the hardened Israel supporters, they are Israel first, America last. It could not be more clear. Randy Fine, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and don't forget, for many of them, it's all economics. So being supporters, die-in-the-wool supporters of Israel is all about the paycheck. And they pay well, extremely well. And that's why you can get people to lie to your face about a genocide. Why? Because it pays well. Brett Boyle, who is our new mod, thank you so much for being a 1-month member. Don't forget those like buttons, everyone. So smash it. We would appreciate it. Monty R14, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Guys, it's been a great evening, but we do have one more story to cover.
Which thing are we doing?
This
That's
is
also where I get confused when you have all these things down here and you're like, well, I don't do all of them, but then I don't know what's happening.
Just in case, if you guys haven't gone to patreon.com/generational change, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel over at patreon.com. Thank you so much. Jen wanted to cover a very important issue. You are a student of the law.
I am.
It can amaze just about anybody, the level of stupidity and idiocracy that we find ourselves in today. That would include the head of Homeland Security.
I want to, well, every time we show these things, I want to preface it with, these are examples as to why American empire is failing. And it really is our education system. It is. That's the root of it. When we show things like this is a testament to how poor our education system is in this country. And that is like she should be the poster child at this point for poor education.
Kristi, Noem will prove to you once and for all how a basic education can be lost on even somebody who achieves high political office, such as governor and director of Homeland Security. Amazingly.
I'm floored by this. And I shouldn't be.
Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country.
Habeas corpus is the Fourth Amendment. It is for the protection against illegal search and seizure. This is as basic as the right to free speech, the right to bear arms. Yes, Amendment 3 has obviously,
let me explain. Don't mock Amendment 3.
I'm not mocking Amendment 3. I'm just saying that it generally, we're not quartering people these days.
No, but but here's what's so funny. So when I was in law school, there was, I forget who it was, but he was like, he would always say it like totally deadpan and people would think it through, but he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to specialize in Third Amendment law. Just to be ridiculous. But I want to explain what habeas corpus is, because I don't think people necessarily really know. Okay, so I think we need to know. First of all, habeas corpus is Latin for present the body. Present the body, show the body. Corpus is body. Habeas is show, right? Like, or present, or whatever it is in Latin, right? And what they're talking of is the body of evidence. So habeas corpus is all of our rights that if we are detained or our liberty is potentially being challenged, like we are being arrested, the state has an obligation to present the body. They have to show you what it is, and it has to be public as to why you are having your liberty, or you're being detained, or why your liberty is being threatened. So it is the obligation of the state to present the body, which is evidence. And that's what habeas corpus is. And so what we have as our Fourth Amendment is really protection against unreasonable search and seizure. But it's the gist of it is your Miranda warnings, all of those things are included in the nation state's obligation to present their case, which is basically going through due process. Okay.
Django, I'm sorry to say, but you failed basic civics as well.
No, people think that
the right to a fair and speedy trial is Amendment 8, if I remember correctly.
no. Amendment 8 is Amendment 8 is cruel and unusual punishment. But hold on, I should
Right
know.
to a jury by your peers is 9.
No, that would be no. That's 6. 7 is attorney. Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. 6 is speedy trial by a jury of the state, by a jury of peers. 7 is right to trial by jury as opposed to by court. And 8 is cruel and unusual punishment. I knew 8 was cruel and unusual punishment because I did a paper on that one. But anyway, let this continue. This is embarrassing.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas
right
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President
Habeas
Lincoln
corpus,
used it.
Excuse me.
You have to be a certain level of ignorant,
yeah,
stupid, and arrogant. I don't like Senator Hassan as much as anybody, but you're going to try to double down on a U.S. senator who clearly knows what he's
well,
talking.
Lincoln did it.
Like that. Well, first, that's a defense mechanism, but the less said, the better. Like, you're not going to talk your way around the fact that you don't know what the fuck the Constitution says.
Marco, yes. Habeas corpus, which is what we refer to as due process. But yeah, it really is that. All amendments in the Bill of Rights, in the first 10 amendments, is for all people on our soil. All people. You do not have to be a citizen to have the rights of the first, fourth, fifth, all the amendments. You have those rights. The only right you don't have in terms of our amendments is right number 14th Amendment, which is the right to vote. You don't get that. Or 15. 14 is equal protection. 15 was the right to vote. All men. But like, you don't get that. But the first 10, everyone gets them.
Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the Live Free or Die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason in order to detain and imprison someone?
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
No, he doesn't.
It has to be approved by. Let it finish playing because the senator explains it.
Let us be clear, though,
it
that
has
this
never
president-
been done. It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress.
Word. But here's the truth. Kristi Noem, who is the director of our Department of Homeland Security, all right? This isn't just a regular person on the street. This isn't even a representative. This is the director of Homeland Security. Does not know what due process is. Also, I did a little digging into her. What is her educational background? And again, I am loath to say poor, very poor. She didn't graduate from school until however went back to school and ended up with like an honorary situation. That aside, and I don't care how elitist it sounds, and I've said it before, not all jobs are meant for all people. Not everybody is qualified to do every job. And your education matters in some jobs.
Jen.
I don't care if it sounds elitist. When it comes to being a member of Congress, which is the people's house, I think it should be all people from all walks of life, all backgrounds representing constituents. And I don't care what anybody's education level is. I really don't. However, I do think that Kristi Noem right here is the poster child for that. We need to maybe have some sort of basic civics test that people need to pass in order to be in a representative capacity. And I mean basic civics, because that's off the wall. However, the fact that someone is in her position and doesn't know basic stuff like that, again, testament to our poor education system in this country. And she should be embarrassed. She probably isn't. She doesn't seem to give a shit. She was just schooled as to what habeas corpus was and then sat there with a straight face and said, I know what it is. No, you didn't know what it was. It's really embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
And it is a reflection of how bad things are in this country. I can't say for certain where we lost our way, but it is very much like the education system in that they don't want thinking federally elected representatives. They want obedient slaves, essentially. One nation under corporate power, hence fascism. That's ostensibly where we are because we really don't have a say. And the monopolization of the free market has allowed for the worst of the worst people to be in positions of power that basically look at, for example, Kristi Noem would be a very good example of somebody who is a true Trump acolyte.
She's a very loyal person, and I have no problem with that. And if I were him, I would only surround myself with the loyalist people too. I don't have a problem with that. He should do that. Anybody who surrounds himself with people that aren't loyal, that's a moron.
Especially from where we stand and being completely objective about this, we only know of 2 specific instances in which they tried to take Trump out this past year. If you're in a situation where all you did was slightly turn your head in the wrong direction to avoid what I still want people to understand this. And I'm saying this as somebody who, for those of you who have been following this channel, know that I am an extremely agnostic politico. I don't give a fuck about your ideology. I only care about what's right and wrong. And what was wrong was the fact that the will of the people wanted Donald Trump because this country is irrevocably broken. It just is. And so what did the powers that be decide that they were going to do? They were going to kill him. And they came within a fraction of an inch of killing him. And who the hell knows what this country would have descended into if he had been killed that day. I was door knocking for Jen in Davie. I remember this. I remember exactly where I was. I saw it come across the wire. I took one look at it and I said, oh, they tried to kill him. Oh, that's an assassination attempt. Hands down. I only needed a few seconds to determine whether this was a setup or whether it was legitimate. And then there was all the things that transpired after the fact. If he had been killed that day, let me assure you, this country would have broken itself in half in a way that you can't even possibly fucking fathom. So be thankful he wasn't killed. At some point, we have to recognize that this system is broken and that we are being led into idiocracy because corporate oligarchy has turned our country into fascism. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Look at David Hunter vowed to uphold the Third Amendment. Now you're getting it. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, fair. And I just wanted to finish the thought I was having about that, because while I don't think that people in the legislature necessarily need to have higher education, I do want the people in my executive branch and my judicial branch to be educated. I do. I want people that are running the Department of Homeland Security to have a pretty solid political education, foreign affairs education. Yes, I do. I want that. And I don't care that it's not everybody can have that. You're right. Not everybody can do all jobs. Not everybody gets to do everything. That's life. But it really bothers me that he can't find people that are loyal and not morons. And I don't understand, like, the idea of having a director of Homeland Security that doesn't know things like that is really, it's absurd. She is worse than Hegseth, and he is so out of his league that, I mean, I don't even know how he's still there.
I want you guys to all remember that the goal of our channel is to continue to create the momentum that is necessary that will turn the tide against this broken system, which is going to require a lot of people to set their egos aside and recognize that this is a class war, nothing more. Do not be distracted by the stupidity, idiocracy, arrogance, and ignorance that flows through our political discourse every single fucking day. It is so tiring. I have no patience for it, and neither should you. So when people get their panties in a bunch about this little niche issue that is bothering them right now, remember this. We're the only developed nation on earth that does not have a single-payer healthcare system. The only one. We are the only nation on earth that does not have a living wage in a thriving economy. You go to any nation in the world that has a thriving economy, Australia, Japan, even communist China,
Scandinavia,
go to Scandinavia, go to Germany, even go to the UK. You know what these countries have? They have a universal education system, which means that you can learn a skill, a trade, or get a degree without having to go into massive debt for the rest of your life and be able to do something productive in society and make a living. That's a fact. We don't have that here. In many other parts of the world where things are taken completely for granted, we are now faced with the reality that everything is falling apart. So, if it falls apart, are enough people going to rise up and say, I've had enough. Let's make that change. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know that the more that the Zion-Nazis open their big fat mouths, we're going to get closer to some type of systematic change, because there's only so much people are going to put up with. And let me assure you, when 2027 rolls around and everybody starts running for president, this is only going to, guys, keep in mind, this is going to start in a year and a half. It's not that far away, but you are going to see a completely different world when it comes to presidential politics and just politics in general. People have seen through the bullshit. Now it's our turn to create that change. That's what's going to happen. Nothing is perfect, Anton, but I can assure you that the basics of these other nations, we would be so envious of if we even had a taste of it.
Here's the thing that I can say about Canada and the UK. They don't have people filing. They don't have people filing for bankruptcy because of healthcare. They don't have people in so much student loan debt that they never can afford to live because they're spending all of their time paying off student loan debt. So even if there's charges for people to go to university in different countries, there is not a predatory loan system, a for-profit system designed to fuck people who go get educated or to use healthcare. That's the difference. So it isn't that there isn't some cost in places. I acknowledge that. Then there's no perfect system, but it isn't controlled by profiteers that are purposefully using AI to kill you to increase their profits. That's the difference.
And not only that, but Yeshua brings up, we have too much corruption from kickbacks. Donald Trump has blown this system wide open because he is a complete corporate whore. He doesn't care. In his mind, it's all about doing business. This is about business, baby. It's a really great idea. We're going to do really great things. Everybody goes crazy when Trump does it. But in reality, it's like the Democrats who are now going to complain that Medicaid has been cut and the rich got another big tax break. Here's the bottom line. The Democratic Party as a whole does not and will never support the solution to austerity politics, which is a single-payer universal healthcare system. They will never support it. So the reason your Medicaid keeps getting cut is because those motherfuckers are never going to do anything other than to scare the living shit out of you that you will never get anything in this world, and you should be grateful for the little fucking crumbs you get. So get the fuck back in line and vote for us. They're all in this together. If you can't see it yet, I feel bad for you. But hopefully, if you are here and you stick with our channel, you will understand that we have no agenda. We are not here to get rich. We are here to help people, to educate them on how to navigate through this system. We are a heavily suppressed channel. And you know how I know we are? Because all you have to do is look at our viewership and look at our likes and comment ratios. We blow the competition out of the fucking water. The only reason that we are not hitting tens of thousands of views on every video is because we made a conscious decision early on that we were going to get flagged. We decided to host an Assange-a-thon, and that buried our channel right where it stood. And we've been struggling ever since.
I think it would have been something else if it weren't that.
Maybe.
I mean, but that's what got us flagged in our lower number subscriber here, Eric. Let's put this up because it's relevant right now. From
My meds cost 5 grams.
5G. No, his meds cost $5,000 a month, and he pays zero.
And yes, I have a good job, and that's a Canadian, eh?
That's my point. So I understand that no system is perfect, and there are people that have to wait for things. By the way, people wait for stuff here like you would not believe. So
and on top of everything else, if I can't make this more clear than humanly possible, Cuba is 90 miles from where Jen lives, and we have spent multiple generations since 1959 to denigrate the island of Cuba. Because they're communists. They're commies. And you know what they have? One of the best healthcare systems in the world.
Yeah.
It's amazing what the commies can afford to do, but we can't. They have no free market, but somehow they can give their people healthcare. That's incredible, don't you think? And even if you don't like Cuba, which is totally fine, how come they've got healthcare that buries ours? We have to make that change.
Okay, so who has the best healthcare? In theory, in theory, we do. When you talk about the care and the infrastructure and the technology that we have available in this country, we have the potential to have the best healthcare in the world because we do have the capability of that. We have that available. The problem is we don't give it to people. We don't give it to people because we found a way to profit margin it and have a few people get very rich and screw everyone else. But if we had healthcare for people, we would have the best healthcare in the world.
Yalabite, thank you for the $1.99. Appreciate the Fraser reference. We need to bring back intellectualism. No argument. I think that
in certain positions, for sure.
Yes.
Like again, in the people's house, I think it should be all different levels of all different people. In the executive branch and in high positions, yes, I want my people educated. I do. I do. I want them educated. And I also, in cases of people that are the director of Homeland Security, which we didn't really talk about, I actually prefer if they're people that have served in said capacity. Whatever that capacity is, whether it's law enforcement or military or whatever it is. I do not like people in high up positions overseeing shit that they have no idea how it works.
Agreed. S. Kolachuk, thank you for the 5 Canadian A. Canada's banks are also regulated. We also have good gun laws. Well, there you go. Teresa, thank you for the gifting of 5 generational change memberships.
Hold on. Sorry. Go back. I didn't mean to do it. I'm sorry. Go back. Go back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you. I just was looking at it.
Well, is that the message you want up there?
No, I didn't mean to, but I wanted, but it's up there. So it says Jen went to St. Mary's in San Antonio. Yes, I did. Wonder if we were ever at Oyster Fest at the same time. Very possible. 1997 to 2003. I wasn't a big Oyster Fest person, even though they had it on St. Mary's campus. I was much more of a King William Fair. And for people who do not know, we're talking about Fiesta, which is like Mardi Gras. It takes place over a period of time in San Antonio, and it's way fun. And there's different events. And Oyster Bake used to happen on the campus of my law school. Anyway.
And again, Teresa, thank you very much for the
Thank you, Teresa.
Memberships. And of course, Progressive Lefty with another $6.99 Canadian A. I work in a hospital and know exactly what the problems are. Our right-wing governments have drastically underfunded.
Because they want them to fail so they can say things like, see, it doesn't work. We need to privatize.
Hence
and
why
it's happening in places like Canada, and it's happening in the UK where they're pushing to privatize shit because they think that it's so much better like we have it here for the rich people. Because
and I'm going to have to be making a big stink in the commercial real estate world, because now Trump and his cronies are trying to go after the 2 government-backed loans that people who want to invest in properties are able to get. And that, of course, is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And I'm not saying they're perfect. They're far from it. But you know what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are? They're the most secure loans you can get. So if you have an investment and shit hits the fan, you're going to have more leeway with them than you will with anybody else. So, of course, why not just privatize it? Because the descent into madness is where we've headed. This is the end game. The acceleration to the end of the capitalist system has commenced because nothing's off limits. Nothing.
Travers says, nope, don't have the best healthcare outcomes. American health is pushing. Absolutely. We don't have the best outcomes. I don't think we have the best outcomes. We have lower life expectancy. We have horrible outcomes because we have profit motive, which is why they're pushing bad foods and chronic illness and medication. I was simply saying that if we had single payer, it wasn't a profit motive. Our infrastructure for healthcare in terms of our capabilities, our technology, our doctors, our facilities are really the best in the world. They are. There's a reason why people come from so many other countries to study medicine here. There's a reason for it. But you're right. We have horrible outcomes because of the capitalist profit motive. That's exactly correct.
Toyo Taz couldn't have said it better. But guess what? Well, we're sending trillions to Israel over time, certainly. And we don't have universal health care. Israel does. Ain't that funny? Man, they really do. It's like they're laughing in our face. But as I said, I think we're on a pretty good mission here. There were some clips that we didn't get to. We've been running for over 3 hours now, which is amazing. But when you get a large audience, you want to try to, keep up, to speed with everything that's going on. I think we covered a lot of important topics.
Well, and plus our guest came on because Zainab came on half an hour later than our guest normally comes on. We're sort of like, Yeah,
no, but I think we definitely covered some good stuff tonight. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't smashed that like button, please make sure that you do. Please make sure that you're subscribed. Please make sure that you click the bell. We're going to have lots of interesting guests coming up, including Rothbone's better half, Comrade Batty. She's going to be joining us on Monday. Don't know who our last guest is going to be before Jen hits the road to cross the border, or across the ocean, I should say. And
crossing the pond.
Over the course of 3 weeks, I will be having guest hosts that will be joining me. Zaina will be one of them. Steve Grumbine will be another. Ron Placone will be another. And there will be a few others sprinkled in. So we're going to have some fun. And I hope you guys will enjoy, as I will have to be holding down the fort. Maybe Jen will pop on, depending on how late it is.
Depending on how late it is, and depending on how it works. But I will make sure to create content and try to be, politically timely with content, but also some travel content. And I will make sure that you guys will have that to play it.
Iranian Kiddo, thank you so much for the $9.99 again. There's been some armed Kurdish rebels in the past, mostly in Turkey, and no sovereign country can allow that. But Kurds are Iranic people. We have a lot in common. We both celebrate Nowruz New Year. Interesting. Very interesting. Iranian Kiddo, where are you based in the States or are you overseas? I'd be very curious to know. And yes,
I know the Kurds are screwed, right? And why? Why are I'll tell you why I think the Kurds are screwed. And it's probably the same as why a lot of peoples are screwed, because 2 countries, France and England, have created more than 40% of the world's nation state borders. And the Kurds are a group of people that exist as in multiple different nation states, because those nation states are make-believe, drawn up by Britain and France. So we have inorganic nation states that are peoples like Afghanistan. There's a reason that's a shit show. It wasn't meant to be a state like that. It's different tribes, it's different things. And then the white people came in and just drew lines and said, now this is you. But the problem is the Kurds exist in so many different places, but they're a minority in all of those places. It's sort of like they were gerrymandered. The Kurds have been gerrymandered to a place of weakness by the way we've created nation states. That's what I think has been a part of the problem. I'd like to get Ty. I'd like to get him. I would. I forwarded his stuff to you, Peter. Can you reach out to him?
I've got an email. Rachel is sending it out. So
we're gonna try, Travers.
We're working on it.
We're gonna try.
We're working on a lot of people right now.
But that's someone that I want to be here to talk to. So there's certain guests that we have to put off until I'm back.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully I won't ruin the show while you're gone, Jen.
Pakistan is splitting apart. Pakistan's another good example because Pakistan and India are also the same peoples, basically. But it's a religious dispute, like everything else.
And again, religion.
And so that's what happens. You have a lot of the people that are in Pakistan are actually Indian that are Muslim, and we're not comfortable because being the Muslim minority in a kind of fascist Hindu situation, as it's gotten progressively worse there as well. But the Indians and the Pakistanis are similar. Like, I'm not going to say they're the same, but there is a huge crossover in those peoples, in their culture, in their history, in their language. And the line is not necessarily where it ought to be.
When Steve is here, we will have an extensive MMT conversation, especially with our crowd growing as big as it is. People need to understand what the difference between debt and deficit is and how modern monetary theory actually works. Here's the simplest way to explain it. The government prints money and we're taxed. Not we're taxed and our tax dollars funds the government. Doesn't work that way. So just some basic economics that
we are
at the federal level, not at the state and the local. The state and the local have to have balance. They have to balance the budget. That is real. So with that said,
we are an MMT channel in a sense that we abide by that as a general principle, just like gravity. But it isn't something that we necessarily need to focus on as a topic. In fact, that's something that kind of irks Steve because to him, it should just be part of regular, like it's just how things work. It should be part of every conversation having to do with economics because it's just how things work. You don't need to have a specific thing.
That's why Northern Hillbilly, I often like to say that the worst president in U.S. history is Woodrow Wilson. And
he does say that. He hates Woodrow Wilson.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. For all of you that are here this evening, make sure that you come back, check out some of our clips, leave some comments, share with people that you know. We're, like I said, crossing sort of a Rubicon, if you will, of sorts for our channel, but we're excited and we're very excited, especially for those of you that have been here with us for a very long time. Andrew Jackson David is certainly the most controversial president we've ever had, but Andrew Jackson was a president before the Industrial Revolution. Two completely different worlds and two completely different levels of impact.
That's true.
Nonetheless, Trail of Tears, one of the worst things that ever happened in our nation's history. And Jackson is as responsible for that. But at the same time, he was probably the most significant war general as it relates to the War of 1812.
Okay, who knows what the K stands for? Don't say, Peter, because I know what the K stands for. I'm just curious if people know what the K in James K. Polk stands for. And if you guess without looking, that's cool. And only you will know. It's sort of an honor system. But anyway, I know because my older did a report on. Yeah.
No one's going to get this.
Okay, it's Knox. It's Knox, K-N-O-X. It's Knox. It's Knox, and I know that because, again, a report.
Many people think James Polk is the most underrated president.
Really?
Yeah, it's up for debate. nevertheless, we really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you
We
all.
see our regular people like Donald James. We see new people like Jack Huffman and Jesus is God, Marco, Rami. Yeah, we've got a slew of new people that are here.
Thanks for coming, guys.
But our favorites are also here. You know, we've got Josie Justice, we've got Tony D, we've got BS, we've got Kat Negrita, we've got David Hunter. You know, we are.
I'm pretty sure I saw Chris Garrett at some point and Holly Horn.
Yes, Chris Garrett had appeared. So Philip Blair, we do appreciate you all being here. So
we know who our people are.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday.
Free Palestine.